You have just woken up as a bunny in Clover Valley. For the next 3 hours, you are going to experience a surprise hawk attack, a daring midnight raid on the farmer's garden, and even a heart-stopping fox chase. And this won't be easy, so good luck. But before we get into this journey of the bunny, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe, like the video, and why not leave a comment on where you are tuning in from and what animal you want me to cover next. Now let's begin this epic adventure together. The first sensation is always the coolness, the gentle press of dawn-kissed grass against my whiskers, each blade weighted with perfect spheres of dew that tremble with my breathing. I haven't opened my eyes yet. There's a ritual to waking that keeps us alive, and it begins with listening. My ears pivot independently, catching the subtle symphony of morning, the soft rustle of wind through clover stems, the distant trill of meadowlarks, the absence of heavy footfalls, or the scrape of predator claws. Only when the soundscape registers as safe do I allow my eyelids to flutter open, revealing a world painted in the gentle lavender hues of early dawn. I blink 3 times, clearing sleep from my vision, watching how dew drops fracture the emerging sunlight into tiny prisms. My nose twitches automatically, pulling in information that my eyes could never capture. The crisp, mineral scent of soil still cool from night, the sweet perfume of clover blossoms, the faint musk of my warren mates nearby, and thankfully, no alarming Notesno fox, no weasel, no human. Now comes the body check, another survival routine performed without conscious thought. A ripple passes through my muscles, from nose to tail tip, ensuring everything responds as it should. Left hind leg, slight stiffness from yesterday's mad dash across the creek bed. Nothing serious. Shoulders, back, haunches all ready for whatever the day might demand. My heart maintains its steady, rapid rhythm, about 140 beats per minute, even at rest, always prepared to surge into the 300s should danger appear. I rise to a sitting position, dewdrops scattering from my fur, and take a moment to scan the valley. Clover Valley, as humans might name it, though we have our own way of thinking about it, a complex mental map of scents, textures, and escape routes rather than arbitrary labels. The valley stretches before me, a gentle bowl of green cradled between rolling hills, its floor carpeted in clover and timothy grass. Morning fog lingers in the lowest spots, making islands of the blackberry thickets and elderberry bushes that dot the landscape. From my vantage point at the warren's eastern entrance, I can observe 5 warren mates already engaged in cautious morning activities. 2 youngsters, barely weaned, tumble over each other near the protection of a gnarled oak's roots. An elder female methodically grooms her face with precise paw movements while keeping one eye fixed on the sky. Just beyond her, our warren's dominant male sits utterly motionless, except for his constantly rotating earsaw morning sentry. We are, by nature, creatures of precisely calculated risk. Each moment above ground represents a choice, the necessary gamble of exposure for the reward of sustenance. Our warren understands this bargain intimately. My mental map of our underground network activates as I consider it 3 main entrance holes, each with a sharply angled descent to prevent predator access. The central chamber, where the youngest kits remain with nursing mothers, 7 escape tunnels radiating outward like spokes, each ending at a concealed exit. 2 false chambers designed to trap and confuse digging predators. 3 emergency bolt holes scattered throughout, barely wider than our bodies, offering instant refuge when shadows fall from above. This network, this architectural marvel dug with nothing but our claws and determination, represents generations of survival wisdom. Each tunnel tells a story. The southern passage, slightly narrower than the rest, was the desperate work of my mother's mother during a terrible rain that threatened to flood the nursery chamber. The western exit, with its distinctive zigzag pattern, confounded a persistent fox family last autumn. The northeast tunnel, freshly expanded, still bears the scent markers of the juveniles who worked through 3 nights to complete it. I stretch fully now, extending my forepaws forward while arching my spine, feeling the pleasant pull through my shoulders and back. My hind legs, powerful springs coiled with potential energy, flex and release in preparation for the day's movements. These legs can propel me from stillness to over 40 body lengths per second, a blur of fur and motion that has saved me countless times. I practice this readiness every morning, even in apparent peace. The warren operates on subtle hierarchies that would be invisible to outside observers. Dominance expressed not through violence but through access. Who feeds first? Who selects the premium resting spots? Who makes breeding decisions? As a middle-ranked female, I observe these dynamics with the same attention I give to hawk silhouettes. The dominant male, distinguished by a notch in his left ear from a long-ago escape, maintains order through presence rather than aggression. The breeding females command respect through experience, their movements economical and confident. The juveniles, myself included until recently, learn our place through gentle corrections, a warning thump, a strategic blocking of passage, a meaningful stare. Our clan's organization flows from necessity. Predators target disorder, confusion, weakness. Our discipline is survival. I ease myself fully upright now, my movements deliberate and unhurried. Too much speed or panic above ground signals vulnerability to watching eyes. The mental checklist continues: distance to nearest cover, 7 hops to the blackberry tangle. Wind direction, from the east, favorable for detecting approach from the forest edge. Nearest warren mate, elder female, reliable warning thumper, with excellent vision. Overhead conditions, clear sky, high visibility for both us and threats. The dew has begun to evaporate as sunlight strengthens, transforming from perfect droplets to a general dampness that flattens my fur where I've been sitting. I take a moment to groom, drawing my paws over my face and ears in quick, efficient strokes. This isn't vanity but vital maintenance. Wet fur compromises speed, creates scent trails, announces presence. My stomach tightens with morning hunger, but I resist the immediate urge to begin feeding. Patience marks the difference between the cautious and the taken. I watch the dominant male, waiting for his subtle signal, the twice-repeated ear flick that indicates his assessment of acceptable risk. When it comes, a ripple of motion passes through the visible warren members. Breakfast may begin, but with protocols observed. I move 3 careful hops from the warren entrance, establishing proper distance. We never feed immediately beside our homes, a basic precaution against leading predators directly to our doors. The morning light catches the undersides of dewdrops still clinging to clover leaves, transforming the humble plants into collections of tiny crystal ornaments. My hunger sharpens at the sight of the tender stems, but I maintain the discipline of alternating 3 seconds scanning horizons, 3 seconds feeding, repeat. The ground beneath my paws holds its own language. Through the sensitive pads, I detect the minute vibrations that might herald danger long before eyes or ears confirm it. The distinctive rhythm of fox paws, the heavy tread of humans, the unique compression pattern of coyote steps. This morning, the earth speaks only of safety: small insect movements, the distant impact of falling acorns, the gentle percussion of other rabbit feet. The valley awakens fully around me as the sun clears the eastern ridge. Light spills across the landscape in a warm wash, activating 1,000 scents previously held dormant by night's coolness. My world is primarily one of smell and sound, with vision serving mainly to confirm what these superior senses have already detected. Now the air carries complex information, the territorial marking of a male 2 warrens over, the subtle difference between this morning's clover and yesterday's, the lingering passage of a deer herd before dawn. I allow myself to settle further into the rhythm of morning, my initial vigilance balanced now with the necessary business of nourishment. My whiskers register the distance between plants, the space for sudden movement if needed. My ears continue their constant rotation, an automatic radar system scanning for threats. My nose twitches ceaselessly, pulling in the changing information of the valley. This moment, the quiet awakening, the careful emergence, the calculated beginning forms the foundation of each day's survival. In the gentle cradle of Clover Valley, where the ground drops away toward the sparkling thread of the stream and rises again toward the protective embrace of the forest edge, we enact the ancient patterns of our kind, alert yet calm, vulnerable yet prepared, small but persistent. The dew evaporates fully now, leaving behind the true sense of the day. My stomach gradually fills with the tender greens, energy flowing back into muscles held ready. Around me, the Warren community moves in its morning choreography, each member both independent and part of our survival collective. We communicate through subtle signals. A head raised suddenly causes momentary stillness in all nearby rabbits. A series of light foot thumps shares information about distant movement. A particular posture indicates discovery of especially tender feeding. This is how we begin, awakening to a world both beautiful and dangerous, our senses extended to their limits, our bodies poised between rest and explosive action. The valley holds us in its morning embrace, the dew-kissed clover yielding its sustenance, the Warren network standing ready beneath our feet. Another day of life, earned through vigilance, begins. Breakfast among whispering stalks. The morning feast unfolds like a slow, deliberate dance. I move with purpose among the clover patches, never lingering too long in one spot. This isn't merely preference, it's survival strategy. Staying in place creates a visible depression in the vegetation, a signpost to predators reading the landscape. Rabbit was here. So I practice the ancient foraging pattern: 3 bites here, move 5 hops, 4 bites there, shift again. Unpredictable, invisible. The selection process itself requires discernment. My incisors, ever-growing tools perfectly designed for plant matter, clip with precision through stems and leaves. Not every clover merits consumption. Too old, and the fibrous toughness wastes precious energy to digest. Too young, and the watery content provides insufficient nutrition for the risk of exposure. I seek the perfect balance: leaves fully formed, but not yet toughened by sun, stems pliant but substantial, blossoms just beginning to unfurl their purple-tinged potential. Each bite delivers a complexity of flavor that human palates might dismiss as simplistic. But there are worlds within these green, subtle variations of sweetness indicating sugar content. Minute bitter notes warning of potential toxins, textural differences between plants growing in shade versus full sun. My specialized digestive system, with its enlarged cecum designed to process cellulose, appreciates these distinctions. The morning dew adds its own dimension, enhancing both flavor and hydration. The rhythm of chewing becomes meditative, 32 precise movements per mouthful, ensuring maximum extraction of nutrients. My jaw moves in a distinctive side-to-side motion rather than up and down, grinding plant matter efficiently between molars designed for this specific purpose. There's comfort in this rhythm, a brief surrender to biological function, while my ears and nose maintain their vigilant monitoring of surroundings. Around me, the stalks whisper their morning conversations, brushing against each other in the gentle breeze. These sounds create both comfort and concern. They mask the smaller noises of potential approach, while providing a baseline against which unusual sounds might register. I compensate by increasing the frequency of my pausing, head raised, ears rotating independently, to sample the acoustic environment from different angles. A younger Warren mate approaches from my right, moving in the characteristic stop-motion pattern of our kind. 3 quick hops, freeze and assess, 4 more hops, another pause. This female, recognizable by a distinctive patch of darker fur between her ears, maintains proper foraging distance close enough for collective vigilance benefits. far enough to avoid creating a concentrated feeding sign. We acknowledge each other with the subtlest of nose twitches, a silent communication that conveys recognition without unnecessary movement. The sun continues its morning climb, warming my back through my fur. This changing temperature brings new dimensions to the breakfast ritual. Ground-level insects become more active, creating minute vibrations through the soil and vegetation. Dew evaporates completely, altering scent profiles and visibility patterns. The meadowlarks transition from their dawn chorus to more intermittent territorial announcements. Each shift registers in my awareness, adjusting my internal risk assessment moment by moment. I pause to perform a mid-meal grooming, drawing my paws over whiskers and face to clear any clinging vegetation. This serves multiple purposes, maintaining sensory clarity, preventing scent accumulation, and providing a moment to conduct a full visual scan of my surroundings while appearing occupied with personal maintenance. The horizon remains clear of winged threats. The forest edge shows no suspicious movement. The wavy grass line between feeding grounds and warren entrances offers clear passage if retreat becomes necessary. Returning to feeding, I encounter a patch of particularly succulent clover, its leaves broader and more tender than surrounding plants. This presents a risk-reward calculation: superior nutrition, balanced against extended exposure in one location. I compromise by taking just 4 precise bites before deliberately moving to less optimal forage nearby. Survival frequently demands such sacrifices of immediate pleasure for longer-term security. The dominant male appears at the perimeter of our feeding area, his presence altering subtle dynamics among the breakfast gathering. Without obvious signals, feeding patterns adjust, younger members giving slightly wider berth, mature females continuing without acknowledgement, the overall group formation shifting to optimize his protective oversight while maintaining dispersed foraging efficiency. These adjustments happen as naturally as breathing, the product of evolutionary choreography refined over countless generations. As feeding continues, social interactions increase in frequency while remaining minimal in obviousness. A nose bump in passing communicates warren status updates. A synchronized pause between 2 siblings reinforces familial bonds. A strategic positioning that places less experienced members in more protected central locations, while veteran foragers accept perimeter positions with greater exposure, but earlier warning potential. We are simultaneously individuals and components of a survival collective, each pursuing personal nourishment while contributing to group security. One of the oldest females performs a distinct foot thump knot, the urgent warning of imminent danger, but the subtle all-clear signal that indicates completion of her systematic scan of surroundings. This permissive communication allows a slight collective relaxation, feeding becoming marginally less interrupted by vigilance pauses, chewing rhythms extending by fractions of seconds. The sensory pleasure of breakfast intensifies as my initially empty stomach fills to comfortable capacity. The clover releases complex carbohydrates into my specialized digestive system, energy flowing through my body, replenishing resources depleted during the vulnerable rest period. There's a profound satisfaction in this simple consumption, a directness of purpose uncluttered by considerations beyond immediate nourishment and constant safety assessment. My whiskers, those remarkable sensory tools extending from my face, register the precise distance between plants, alert me to the gentle morning breeze direction shifts, and detect the subtle movement of warren mates in my vicinity. They function as an early warning system for anything entering my personal space, sensitive enough to register disturbances in air currents caused by approaching bodies. During feeding, they sweep forward, creating a sensory bubble around my vulnerable head as it lowers to the vegetation. The breakfast ritual occupies approximately 20 minutes, long enough for essential nutrition, brief enough to minimize exposure risk. As feeding nears completion, subtle shifts occur throughout the dispersed group. Bodies angle more frequently toward warren entrances. Pauses for vigilant scanning lengthen slightly. Younger members begin returning to underground safety, while more experienced adults maintain surface presence, their heightened awareness compensating for reduced numerical advantage. I select my final few bites with particular care, choosing plants with highest visible moisture content to supplement hydration. Unlike many mammals, we extract significant water directly from our food, minimizing the vulnerability inherent in dedicated drinking expeditions. The morning dew-covered vegetation proves ideal for this purpose, each mouthful providing both nutrition and hydration in perfect balance. As the sun climbs higher, shadows shorten across the feeding grounds, reducing contrast and altering visibility calculations. Heat begins to build, subtly changing scent dispersal. Pattern smells travel differently in warmer air, requiring adjustments to olfactory vigilance techniques. These environmental shifts signal the natural conclusion of morning feeding, the transition toward midday activities or shelter seeking, depending on temperature trajectories. With my hunger satisfied, I perform a more thorough grooming, systematically cleaning pores, face, ears, and accessible body areas. This maintenance removes food particles that might attract attention, redistributes protective oils through fur, and confirms full functional mobility of all body parts. The familiar motions provide a momentary sense of security, a brief indulgence in personal comfort while maintaining environmental awareness. Around me, the breakfast community gradually disperses, each member departing according to individual risk assessment and satiation level. There's no centralized decision, no leadership directive, simply the collective wisdom of synchronized but independent choices. The dominant male remains visible at the field edge, his continuing presence providing security coverage for the withdrawing group. I make my unhurried way toward a different warren entrance than the one I emerged from another security protocol to avoid establishing predictable patterns. My path incorporates several direction changes and passes through varying vegetation heights, breaking visual continuity for any watching eyes. My fully nourished body feels alert and capable, recharged for whatever challenges the day might present, stomach contentedly processing the simple feast of tender greens. The morning feeding concludes, as it began, with deliberate awareness, calculated movements, and the quiet satisfaction of essential needs met despite ever-present risk. In the soft light of advancing day, with energy flowing through my renewed body and the subtle companionship of warren mates, creating an invisible security network across the feeding grounds, there exists a moment of perfect balance between vulnerability and capability, between hunger and satisfaction, between individual and community. This is the sustaining paradox at the heart of prey, existence finding fullness and joy while remaining ever vigilant, ever ready for the shadow that may fall without warning. Brush with red-tailed shadow. The first indication comes not from sight, but from a sudden absence of sound. The meadowlark's cheerful trill stops mid-note. No gradual conclusion, no transitional melody, simply present one moment, silent the next. My body responds before conscious thought registers, muscles freezing in mid-motion, one paw suspended above ground, ears stiffening to maximum height, eyes locked forward while peripheral vision expands to its limits. In this crystallized moment of alertness, my heart rate, already quick by nature, accelerates to intense speed. Blood rushes to critical muscle groups, priming them for explosive action. My lungs take in a silent, deep breath and hold it, minimizing movement while maximizing available oxygen. Time seems to stretch, each fraction of a second extending into a space where survival calculations unfold with automatic precision. The silent alarm spreads through nearby warren mates like a ripple through still water. Without visible signals, the breakfast gathering transforms into living statues, bodies frozen in feeding postures but internally coiled with potential energy. Even the youngsters, typically prone to impulsive movement, become utterly motionless. This collective stillness, represents our first defensive strategy, becoming invisible against the landscape through perfect immobility. Then I see it, the distinctive silhouette against the cloudless blue, red-tailed hawk, gliding in a lazy spiral that gradually tightens as it descends, wingtips spread like fingers, testing the air currents. Its shadow slides across the feeding ground, a dark harbinger traveling faster than the predator itself. The hawk's head remains fixed despite its circling body, raptor vision locked onto our previously busy feeding ground, seeking the telltale movement that would distinguish prey from surrounding vegetation. The instinctual calculus activates in my mind, racing through decision trees refined by evolution and experience. Distance to nearest cover, 12 hops to blackberry tangle. Direction of hawk's approach, from southwest, moving northeast. Current wind, light from east, slightly against optimal escape trajectory. Warren entrance, too distant for direct sprint. Visibility conditions, high sunlight, minimal concealing shadows. These factors merge into a single critical assessment: freeze or flee. For prey species, this represents the fundamental survival question. Immobility exploits predator dependency on movement detection, but fails if already spotted. Flight triggers pursuit instinct, but offers survival chance through superior maneuverability at ground level. There exists no perfect answer, only probabilities calculated in heartbeats. The hawk's spiral tightens further, its descent angle steepening with predatory intent. My muscles tremble microscopically, with the effort of perfect stillness while primed for explosive action. Each breath becomes a careful negotiation sufficient to maintain oxygen without creating visible chest movement. My eyes, unable to look directly upward without moving my head, track the predator through the slightest shifts in its traveling shadow and peripheral glimpses of wing. Then comes the moment of commitment. The hawk's wings fold slightly, its body reorients from circular glide to linear dive. This subtle shift contains critical information. The predator has selected a target. The question becomes, is it me? The shadow accelerates across the ground, darkening as the bird drops lower. The angle of approach aligns with my position. Decision time collapses to 0. I choose flight. The transition from absolute stillness to maximum velocity occurs in a time span imperceptible to human observation. My powerful hind legs, compressed against the earth in coiled readiness, release their stored energy in perfect synchronization. My body launches forward, achieving 4/5 of my top speed within the first bound. The initial trajectory aims not directly toward cover, but at an oblique angle, exploiting the hawk's commitment to its dive path and creating a geometric problem for its pursuit adjustment. The world transforms into a blur of sensation. Wind streams through my fur, grass whips against my underside, soil composition telegraphs through my paw pads firm here, yielding there, each variation informing split-second adjustments to stride and direction. My vision narrows to crucial elements, only obstacles, pathway options, destination. Non-essential sensory input fades beneath the overwhelming priority of maximum velocity maintenance. Behind and above, I sense rather than see the hawk's response. The minute aerodynamic adjustments, the compensatory wing angle changes, the recalculation of interception point. These predators possess remarkable adaptation capability, but physics favors the ground-bound in situations requiring rapid directional change. I exploit this advantage with a sharp 90-degree turn at precisely the moment the hawk would commit to final approach velocity. The maneuver succeeds but costs precious momentum. I rebuild speed immediately, powerful legs driving against the earth in perfect alternating rhythm. Each bound covers 6 times my body length, ears pressed flat against my back to reduce drag, body stretched to maximize stride efficiency. The blackberry tangle grows larger in my Visiona thorny sanctuary, promising protection from aerial assault. A shadow flashes across my path, hawk overshooting, banking sharply for another approach. This momentary reprieve allows a critical course adjustment, angling toward a denser section of bramble, where thorny arches create a natural ceiling against diving predators. My lungs burn with the oxygen demand of maximum exertion, heart hammering against ribcage, muscles consuming energy at unsustainable rate. The hawk recovers with impressive speed, its second approach more calculated, trajectory aligned with my new course. I respond with another directional shift, less extreme than the first, but sufficient to require predator adjustment. Each such maneuver represents a complex trade-off, sacrificing forward progress towards safety for lateral movement that complicates the hawk's attack geometry. The mathematics of survival distilled to angles, velocities, and response times. 4 bounds from cover now. The shadow grows suddenly larger, the hawk committing to its strike. In desperation, I employ our kind's most extreme evasive technique, the leap and twist, a mid-air direction change impossible to predict or counter. My body launches upward while simultaneously rotating. Pause briefly, leaving contact with Earth. Landing oriented 90 degrees from takeoff direction. The move sacrifices significant momentum, but creates critical unpredictability. I feel rather than see the whisper of displaced air as talons close on empty space where I would have been. The hawk's momentum carries it forward beyond immediate recovery range. This final advantage provides the necessary margin. 3 bounds at renewed acceleration deliver me beneath the protective canopy of blackberry thorns, their wicked points forming an impenetrable barrier against winged pursuit. The transition from exposed terrain to cover creates a sudden sensory shift. Light dims as vegetation blocks direct sun. The ground changes from open soil to leaf litter accumulated beneath the bramble patch. Sounds transform, the rush of wind through fur replaced by my own heaving breath and thundering heartbeat. Safety remains relative. I've escaped aerial predation only to enter potential ground hunter territory, but the immediate threat has been countered. I navigate deeper into the protective tangle, moving more deliberately now, seeking the optimal balance between continued distance from edge and risk of encountering bramble patch residents. My breathing gradually normalizes, though my heart maintains its urgent rhythm. Survival systems remain activated, ears swiveling to track the hawk's movements outside my vegetative fortress, nose sampling for secondary threats, eyes adjusting to the dappled lighting of my temporary refuge. Through gaps in the thorny canopy, I glimpse the hawk circling in frustrated patrol, its hunt interrupted but not abandoned. It surveys surrounding terrain for alternative prey or signs of my emergence. The standoff has begun. Predator patience versus prey caution. This phase of the encounter becomes psychological rather than physical, a contest of waiting tolerances. As immediate danger subsides, my body begins recovery processes. Muscles tremble with exertion, after effects. Depleted energy reserves signal their emptiness through growing fatigue. Breathing gradually returns to sustainable rhythm. The morning's carefully consumed nutrition now serves its ultimate purpose, providing regenerative resources for this emergency expenditure. I permit myself several minutes of relative stillness, a necessary physiological reset. The bramble sanctuary offers its own sensory landscape. Fallen berries in various stages of fermentation create complex scent patterns. Insects move through decaying vegetation below, their tiny vibrations registering through my sensitive pores. Motes of dust and pollen drift through shafts of broken sunlight. These details gradually expand in my awareness as acute danger response recedes, regular sensory processing resuming normal function. After 20 minutes, the hawk abandons its vigil, wider hunting imperatives outweighing commitment to a single lost opportunity. I track its departure through sound and glimpsed movement, confirming genuine withdrawal rather than hunting strategy. Even then, I maintain position for additional safety margin, using the time to conduct thorough self-assessment, checking for injuries, sustained during escape, confirming full mobility of all limbs, allowing stress hormones to dissipate from bloodstream. This brush with predation represents the central reality of prey, existence, the constant proximity of death, the paper-thin margin between continuing life and abrupt ending. There exists no permanent victory, only successful delays of the inevitable through endless vigilance and appropriate response. Yet within this seemingly harsh equation lies a curious liberation existence distilled to its most essential elements, priorities perfectly clarified by mortal stakes. When I finally emerge from the bramble protection, I do so with calculated deliberation. Rather than returning directly to the warren, I take a circuitous route, incorporating sporadic directional changes and varying movement patterns. This standard security protocol ensures no predator anticipating emergence could predict my path. The journey back requires triple the direct distance, but represents necessary survival investment. The interrupted morning has progressed substantially during my bramble confinement. The sun now approaches its zenith, shadows shortening beneath plants and objects, heat beginning to build across the landscape. Most warren mates have already returned underground or sought shade protection, their morning routines similarly disrupted by the hawk's appearance. The collective memory of danger will influence group behavior throughout the day, feeding patterns becoming more conservative, exposure durations reduced, sentry rotations heightened. As I approach the warren entrancia, different one than my morning emergence point, I pause for final safety confirmation before committing to the momentary vulnerability of the transition zone. The area appears secure, but appearances merit limited trust in matters of survival. I employ the full range of sensory verification scent analysis, revealing no predator markers, sound patterns indicating normal environmental conditions, visual scan confirming absence of waiting threats, vibration assessment detecting no suspicious ground movement. Only when all safety systems report positive status do I make the final approach, moving in the characteristic stop-motion pattern that maintains option availability between movement segments. The warren entrance appears as an unassuming depression beneath a grass tussock, its true nature disguised from casual observation. I slip beneath the concealing vegetation and into the tunnel entrance, the temperature dropping immediately in the underground passage, darkness enveloping my form as I descend into relative security. The brush with death complete, survival reaffirmed for another day, I move through familiar tunnel pathways toward the central chamber. My body carries the lingering effects of emergency exertion, muscles fatigued, energy depleted, senses slightly dulled by stress aftermath. But beneath these temporary conditions lies the deeper awareness. I have passed another test in the endless examination of existence. The red-tailed shadow came and went, and I remain. This is the victory available to prey not conquest or dominion, but continuation. Another sunrise earned through appropriate fear, effective response, and the accumulated wisdom of ancestors encoded in instinct and enhanced through experience. The hawk will return in endless variations, and the calculus will begin again. But for now, in the cool darkness of underground safety, life persists in its humble, vigilant miracle. Sun-warmed midday siesta. The midday sun transforms the valley into a different world. Heat shimmers above grass tips, insects drone in hypnotic patterns, and most sensible creatures retreat to whatever shade they can find. For our kind, this represents a delicate balance, the reduced predator activity, offering relative safety, counterbalanced by the vulnerability of heat stress and diminished alertness that accompanies rest. I've selected my siesta location with characteristic career, shallow depression beneath the southern edge of the blackberry thicket, where thorny branches create a protective ceiling while allowing sufficient air circulation. The spot offers multiple advantages: partial sun exposure for warmth without overheating, 3 clear escape vectors if needed, ground texture suitable for comfort without sacrificing quick movement capability, and established scent markers indicating regular use by Warren members, creating a subtle security through familiarity. Before surrendering to rest, I perform the full grooming rituala, necessary maintenance that serves purposes beyond mere cleanliness. My sensitive paws move in precise patterns across my fur, removing debris that might harbor scent or parasites, redistributing protective oils, checking for injuries or abnormalities, and stimulating circulation after the morning's exertions. The process begins at whiskers and face, areas most critical for sensory function, then progresses systematically backward. The methodical nature of grooming provides its own meditative quality, a bridge between high alertness and controlled rest. My front paws draw repeatedly over ears, clearing minute particles that might interfere with sound detection, paying particular attention to the sensitive inner surfaces where the slightest obstruction could mask crucial warning sounds. I clean between toes where soil accumulates, removing anything that might compromise movement efficiency or create unwanted scent trails. Areas I cannot reach directly receive attention through creative positioning, rolling briefly to access underside, stretching neck to address shoulder regions, employing hindfoot for ear interiors. The flexible spine that allows such contortions represents another evolutionary gift, enabling self-maintenance without vulnerable mutual grooming dependencies that other species require. With body tended to satisfaction, I settle into the depression, positioning myself for optimal balance between comfort and readiness. Unlike deeper sleep that occurs in underground safety, this surface rest requires strategic body arrangement: hindquarters slightly elevated for immediate spring capability, forepaws positioned for instant support, head angled to maintain partial sightlines even through narrowed eyelids. The posture appears relaxed to casual observation, but contains potential energy accessible in milliseconds. Even in relative repose, sensory systems maintain partial function. My ears, those remarkable instruments capable of independent movement, continue their surveillance rotation, known always oriented toward most likely approach vectors, while the other may briefly relax. The muscles controlling them never fully surrender to rest, maintaining minimum tension for instant repositioning if needed. Similarly, my nose continues its rhythmic sampling of air currents, though at reduced frequency. Scent information flows uninterrupted into awareness, creating a chemical map of surroundings that updates continuously even as other faculties dim. This olfactory vigilance often detects threats before visual or auditory systems could register them, providing crucial early warning during vulnerable rest periods. True sleep remains unavailable during these surface siestas. Instead, I enter a series of microdose cycles, brief surrenders to lighter unconsciousness, lasting between 20 and 90 seconds, each followed by moments of heightened alertness, during which all sensory systems perform rapid environment scans. This oscillating pattern preserves necessary rest benefits while maintaining survival readiness. My brain processes these fragmented rest segments with remarkable efficiency, consolidating their benefits despite their interrupted nature. The architecture of prey neurology permits restoration through accumulated partial rest, rather than requiring extended vulnerable unconsciousness. This adaptation represents another example of evolution's endless refinement of survival strategies. The midday heat builds gradually around my resting place, warming fur and skin beneath. This thermal input influences the dozing pattern: higher temperatures, generally correlating with shorter unconsciousness segments, as heat stress triggers more frequent wakefulness. My body compensates through adjusted breathing patterns, ears serving as supplemental temperature regulators, their extensive blood vessels releasing excess heat when positioned to maximize air exposure. During wake segments between microdoses, my consciousness engages in a distinctive form of threat assessment, the continuous recalculation of risk factors as conditions evolve. The angle of sunlight shifts incrementally, altering shadow patterns and visibility dynamics. Air temperature curves toward daily maximum, changing scent dispersion characteristics. Insect activity patterns transform, their collective sounds rising and falling in information-rich variations. Each of these environmental shifts receives analysis through the lens of survival implications. The lengthening shadow from the oak tree 50 hops distant creates new potential concealment zones, requiring adjusted vigilance. The rising temperature increases likelihood of larger predator rest behaviors, potentially reducing immediate threat levels, but requiring accounting for eventual resumption of hunting activities. The sudden silencing of grasshoppers in the western section suggests possible disturbance meriting attention during next alert cycle. My body registers the passage of time not through abstract counting, but through biological markers, the gradual processing of morning nutrition, the subtle repositioning of sun warmth across fur, the changing humidity as plant transpiration responds to peak daylight. These organic measurements inform rest duration decisions more reliably than any artificial metric could provide. 2 warren mates have selected nearby siesta locations, their presence creating a loose security network. We position ourselves at optimized distances close enough for collective threat detection benefits, sufficiently separated to prevent concentrated targeting opportunity for predators. Without explicit communication, we establish complementary vigilance patterns, our alert cycles naturally staggering to maximize group coverage. The older female 15 hops to my left maintains slightly shorter doze segments appropriate to her more vulnerable age status. The younger male beyond her compensates with longer alert periods, reflecting his secondary position in the security hierarchy. Together, we create an invisible surveillance web, more effective than individual efforts alone could achieve. Between microdose cycles, my mind engages in a curious form of consciousness, unlike either full alertness or true sleep. This liminal awareness state permits a type of internal processing unique to quiet rest periods, the integration of recent experiences, consolidation of new environmental information, and subtle updating of mental terrain maps and threat response patterns. The morning's hawk encounter receives particular attention, its details examined for future optimization opportunities, its lessons incorporated into the ever-evolving survival framework. This reflective capacity, though lacking human language structures, nonetheless represents a sophisticated adaptation, the ability to learn from experience, to modify behaviors based on outcomes rather than relying solely on instinct, provides crucial evolutionary advantage. Each predator encounter survived becomes data for improving future survival probability. As midday progresses toward afternoon, my siesta continues its rhythm of brief surrenders and vigilant returns. The sun's position shifts past zenith, altering the thermal equations of my chosen rest spot. Where earlier, the partial exposure provided welcome warmth, now, strategic repositioning becomes necessary to maintain optimal temperature. I adjust my body orientation with minimal movement, sliding deeper into shadow without creating attention-drawing disturbance. Throughout these subtle adjustments, one ear remains perpetually half-cocked, monitoring the soundscape with unwavering attention. This dedicated sensory channel represents the final defense against complete vulnerability, the lifeline that would alert to danger even in deepest microdose. The ear's independent nerve pathways can trigger full wakefulness and emergency response without requiring conscious processing, a direct connection between survival detection and action systems. The complexity of maintaining this balance between necessary rest and essential vigilance, between thermal comfort and exposure risk, between individual need and group security represents the central challenge of daytime surface existence. Underground would offer greater safety, but at cost of lost environmental awareness and nutritional opportunity. The calculated risk of surface siesta reflects the endless compromises that define prey life strategies. Approximately 2 hours into the rest period, A distinctive sound pattern registers the three-part thump sequence of a Warren Sentry signaling shift change. This communication carries multiple information layers: confirmation of continued collective security, notification of personnel adjustment in the vigilance network, and subtle reassurance of social continuity. My next alert cycle includes expanded scanning focused on the pathway between rest area and Warren entrances, verifying the replacement sentry's movement pattern for authenticity. As the afternoon advances, subtle changes in body chemistry signal the approaching end of effective rest period. Energy reserves partially replenished, muscles recovered from morning exertion, thermo-regulation requirements evolving with changing environmental conditions. These factors combine to influence the transition timing from rest to renewed activity. The decision incorporates numerous variables: current hunger level, estimated predator activity patterns during approaching evening period, assessed security of return pathway to Warren, observed behavior of other colony members. The gradual preparation for concluding siesta involves incremental increases in alert cycle duration and sensory system engagement. Muscles receive gentle activation through subtle stretching movements disguised within position adjustments. Respiratory rate increases marginally in preparation for greater oxygen demand. Digestive processes complete their work on morning nutrition, creating renewed capacity for evening feeding. When full alertness returns, it does so in careful stages rather than sudden transition. Each sensory system resumes complete function sequentially: hearing, achieving full directional sensitivity, scent processing expanding to maximum range analysis, visual focus extending from immediate surroundings to complete environmental awareness. This graduated return prevents the vulnerability of disorientation that accompanies abrupt waking. The final phase of siesta involves comprehensive self-assessment and environment verification before movement resumption. Joint articulation, muscle responsiveness, energy levels, hydration status all receive internal checking to confirm operational readiness. External conditions undergo equally thorough evaluation: predator indicators, Warren mate positions, weather stability, approach route security. Only when all systems report satisfactory status does the actual process of rising begin. This transition from rest to activity embodies the essence of prey existence, the constant oscillation between necessary vulnerability and protective vigilance, the endless calculations balancing essential needs against survival requirements, the perpetual awareness that each ordinary moment carries extraordinary stakes. The sun-warmed siesta, seemingly simple in its quiet repose, contains within it the complete complexity of a life lived at the intersection of beauty and danger, comfort and readiness, individual experience and ancient wisdom. Social choreography of the Warren. The underground network we call home exists as both physical structure and social ecosystem. Its earthen architecture simultaneously housing and shaping the complex relationships that define our collective. As afternoon transitions toward evening, and we gather in increasing numbers below ground, the intricate choreography of Warren life unfolds in its full complexity. The central chamber serves as our community, Huba, roughly circular space, approximately 12 body lengths across, its ceiling carefully reinforced with compressed soil and interwoven root fibers. The floor dips slightly towards center, creating natural resting gradients that establish subtle position hierarchies without requiring explicit enforcement. The dominant male typically occupies the slightly elevated western arc, providing both optimal observation angles and quick access to the main escape tunnel. Senior females claim adjacent positions radiating outward, according to status, while younger members settle into more peripheral locations. These spatial arrangements communicate rank more effectively than any direct confrontation could achieve. When juvenile males occasionally test boundaries by edging toward higher status positions, Correction comes through minimalist interventione, meaningful stare from an established resident, a strategic shifting that temporarily blocks access, a barely perceptible nose twitch, conveying unmistakable message. Physical aggression remains exceedingly rare, its excessive energy expenditure and injury risk representing unacceptable survival disadvantages. The chamber fills gradually as afternoon heat diminishes, members returning from various daytime activities according to individual schedules rather than synchronized movement. Each arrival follows established protocol suppors at entrance tunnel to allow scent identification by those already present, a specific body shake that dislodges external debris before bringing it into community space, a series of greeting behaviors scaled according to absence duration and relationship status. Communication flows continuously through multiple channels, creating rich information exchange despite absence of complex vocalization. Ear positions convey emotional states and attention direction with remarkable precision, fully upright, indicating maximum alertness, one ear tilted expressing curiosity or information processing, both partially lowered signaling relative comfort, flattened completely only in extreme danger or submission contexts. The subtle variations between these positions create a sophisticated emotional vocabulary instantly readable by all Warren members. Body positioning similarly carries substantial meaning: the degree of extension or compression, weight distribution across paws, angle of haunches relative to front quarters, proximity tolerance to different individuals. A relaxed stretch near a Warren mate communicates trust and affiliation more powerfully than any explicit signal could. Conversely, the compressed posture, maintaining maximum spring potential, while near another member, speaks volumes about relationship tension or hierarchy negotiation. Scent communication provides perhaps our richest information system. Beyond the obvious territorial and reproductive signaling through specialized glands, our bodies continuously exchange complex chemical messages through breath, fur oils, and subtle excretions. These olfactory signals convey health status, emotional states, nutritional history, mating readiness, stress levels, and countless other data points critical to collective function. The central chamber becomes a library of scent information, its air currents carrying these messages throughout the community space. The seemingly simple act of a dominant female grooming a younger Warren member demonstrates the sophisticated integration of these communication systems. Her body positions lightly elevated, with deliberate space maintenance establishes clear status differential. Her methodical attention to the younger rabbit's ears and face areas represents both practical maintenance assistance and social bonding investment. The scent transfer occurring through the process creates chemical acknowledgement of association. The recipient's response posture relaxed, yet respectfully compact completes the communication circuit, acknowledging both the care and the hierarchy within a single exchange. As evening approaches, the Warren's vital security systems activate in more structured patterns. Sentry duty rotates among adult members according to complex scheduling that balances individual energy reserves, sensory acuity variations, and security experience. The primary sentry position at the main entrance receives highest priority, staffing typically the dominant male or senior females with proven vigilance records. Secondary positions at auxiliary exits maintain slightly reduced alert states, creating a graduated security perimeter. This sentry system depends on our most distinctive communication method, the ground-conducted vibration signals created through strategic thumping of powerful hind legs against tunnel floors. These percussive messages travel efficiently through soil, reaching all Warren sections with minimal attenuation. The communication code employs variations in rhythm, intensity, and sequence to convey specific information: 3 rapid, strong thumps, indicating immediate danger requiring underground retreat, 2 softer, spaced thumps, signaling surface predator presence, but not immediate threat, a single firm thump acknowledging message receipt, rhythmic light sequences sharing all clear status, or sentry rotation notifications. The effectiveness of this system became dramatically apparent during last month's Fox intrusion, when sentry alerts transmitted through ground vibration provided critical minutes of preparation time before the predator's scent could reach interior chambers. The resulting coordinated movement of vulnerable members to secure deep tunnels, while more experienced adults positioned themselves at strategic diversion points, demonstrated the Warren's sophisticated emergency response capabilities. Beyond security functions, social relationships within the Warren exhibit remarkable subtlety. The breeding hierarchy, while appearing straightforward in its dominant structures, contains numerous adaptive flexibility mechanisms. When the previous dominant male suffered hind leg injury during winter predator evasion, his temporary breeding status reduction occurred without destructive conflict. Secondary males adjusted positions with minimal display, primary females redistributed attention appropriately, and the injured leader maintained core respect through non-physical authority expressions while recovery progressed. Maternal relationships demonstrate equally sophisticated dynamics. Nursing females establish carefully delineated creche areas in protected chamber sections, their collective offspring benefiting from shared warmth, vigilance rotation allowing feeding breaks, and emergency response coordination. Yet within this cooperative framework, individual maternal bonds remain clearly distinguished through scent recognition, specific grooming patterns, and subtle positioning preferences. The resulting system balances resource efficiency with necessary kinship maintenance. Juvenile socialization proceeds through remarkably structured progressional stages. Young Warren members begin with play behaviors that appear merely energetic but actually contain crucial skill development components: the chase sequences, building evasion capabilities, mock fighting, establishing physical coordination, exploratory ventures, developing spatial mapping abilities. Older members supervise these activities with graduated intervention protocols, allowing natural learning through controlled risk exposure while preventing truly dangerous experimentation. As adolescent members approach maturity, the Warren's social fabric accommodates their transitional status through strategic role, assignments assistant sentry positions, providing security system training, supervised exploration, expanding territory, familiarity, incremental hierarchy, integration through carefully managed challenge opportunities. The occasional tensions arising during this phase receive containment through established mediation behaviors from senior members, preventing disruptive conflict while facilitating necessary social position evolution. The physical maintenance of our underground complex demonstrates similar cooperation sophistication. Tunnel cleaning rotations distribute labor equitably across able members, with task assignment accounting for individual size advantages in different passage dimensions. Structural reinforcement activities particularly critical. Following heavy rains, activate specialized skills developed through observation and practice. Certain Warren members demonstrate notable engineering intuition, their tunnel modifications consistently proving more resilient against collapse or flooding. These individuals receive subtle status recognition distinct from breeding hierarchy, their practical contributions acknowledged through deference in work organization and material allocation. The complex intersection of physical space and social dynamics becomes most apparent in the Warren's expansion decisions. When population growth necessitates additional living space, the process begins with extended observation of soil conditions and root patterns in potential excavation areas. Lead diggers, typically experienced adults with proven structural understanding, establish initial guide tunnels, creating templates that younger workers then enlarge through coordinated soil removal chains. The resulting new chambers incorporate subtle design elements, reflecting their intended demographic nursery expansions, featuring softer flooring and enhanced temperature stability. Security additions prioritizing quick access to existing escape routes. General living spaces positioned to optimize air circulation and humidity control. Despite the obvious cooperation benefits, Warren life maintains careful balance between collective and individual priorities. Each member retains substantial autonomy in feeding schedules, rest location selection, grooming partnerships, and peripheral tunnel usage. This independence operates within understood parameters, never compromising security protocols, respecting established boundaries, maintaining appropriate hygiene standards, contributing expected labor shares. The resulting system preserves essential individual agency while ensuring collective survival advantages. Resource management reveals further sophistication in our social organization. During last autumn's exceptional clover abundance, the Warren demonstrated remarkable restraint, limiting consumption to sustainable levels rather than maximizing immediate satisfaction. Preserving prime growth areas through rotational access scheduling, maintaining standard vigilance despite reduced competition pressure. This collective discipline, achieved without centralized control mechanisms, allowed extended nutrition stability that proved crucial during subsequent unseasonal rain periods. Information sharing forms another critical component of Warren's social structure. Individuals returning from distant foraging expeditions communicate their discoveries through subtle behavior, pattern-specific movement directions upon exit, suggesting profitable pathways, particular scent markers indicating food type encounters, energy level displays, conveying journey, difficulty assessment. These information transfers lack human language precision, but achieve remarkable functional effectiveness, enabling collective intelligence that surpasses individual knowledge limitations. Evening gathering time in the central chamber represents peak social interaction complexity. As external activities conclude and more members return underground, the space becomes stage for simultaneous relationship maintenance activities, breeding pairs, engaging in mutual grooming that reinforces bonds, siblings re-establishing connections through brief physical contact, non-related Warren mates exchanging proximity acceptance signals through careful positioning adjustments. The resulting tableau appears chaotic to untrained observation, but contains highly organized relationship affirmation patterns essential to continued cooperative function. Conflict resolution, while infrequent, follows established protocols that minimize energy expenditure and injury risk. When two juveniles recently contested access to a preferred rest depression, the resolution unfolded through graduated steps: initial posture displays communicating claim intensity, scent marking, establishing temporary boundaries, minimal physical displacement testing, commitment levels, and finally intervention by mature female establishing usage rotation schedule. At no point did the interaction risk escalating to genuine aggression, the entire sequence prioritizing relationship preservation within necessary resource allocation adjustment. The Warrens' night security arrangements demonstrate particularly sophisticated coordination. As darkness increases predator advantages, our collective response involves enhanced vigilance, distribution sentry rotations, shortened to maintain optimal alertness, specialized night guards positioned at primary entrances, internal monitoring stations established at strategic tunnel intersections. These arrangements follow scheduling patterns that account for individual night vision variations, familiarity with specific predator sound signatures, and demonstrated history of appropriate alarm threshold judgment. Our response to environmental threats reveals further social complexity. When seasonal rains recently threatened southern tunnel networks, the Warren mobilized remarkably coordinated mitigation efforts. Senior members, assessing damage patterns and identifying critical reinforcement points. Working teams assembling by size and digging specialization rather than social affiliation. Progress monitoring systems implemented through regular inspection visits. The emergency response succeeded without disrupting essential security and feeding activities, demonstrating the Warren's sophisticated resource allocation capabilities under pressure conditions. The seasonal shifts in Warren's social patterns reflect both environmental adaptations and intrinsic biological rhythms. As breeding season approaches, subtle relationship recalibrations occur throughout the hierarchy-established pairs, reinforcing connections through increased proximity and grooming behaviors. Unpaired members engaging in cautious compatibility, assessment interactions, dominant structures, undergoing diplomatic reaffirmation through minimal display sequences. These adjustments proceed with remarkable restraint compared to many species, preserving essential cooperation frameworks even during reproductively competitive periods. Multi-generational knowledge transfer occurs through structured observation opportunities rather than direct instruction. Younger members learn critical skills: optimal digging techniques, effective grooming patterns, appropriate alarm response, protocols B, strategically positioning themselves near experienced practitioners during relevant activities. This learning model depends on the Warren's tolerance for observational proximity that might otherwise violate standard space maintenance expectations, a sophisticated educational accommodation within social boundary systems. The Warren's treatment of elderly or compromised members reveals ethical dimensions within our social structure. When aging individuals experience mobility reduction or sensory decline, the collective response includes subtle accommodation adjustments, preferred rest spaces preserved through indirect territorial maintenance, feeding access protected through strategic positioning by affiliated members, grooming assistance provided without dominance implication. These supportive behaviors occur without obvious immediate survival advantage, suggesting rudimentary welfare considerations beyond strict evolutionary self-interest. As full evening approaches and the Warren reaches maximum occupancy, the social dynamics achieve their richest expression. The central chamber and connecting tunnels contain nearly our entire community, creating complex proximity negotiations as individuals balance personal space preferences against security clustering benefits. The resulting arrangement, appearing random to casual observation, actually represents sophisticated optimization, balancing multiple variables: kinship associations, hierarchy positions, thermal regulation needs, exit access priorities, sensory coverage distribution. This intricate social choreography, performed without verbal coordination or centralized direction, emerges from the accumulated evolutionary wisdom encoded in instinct and enhanced through experiential learning. The Warren functions not through rigid behavioral programming, but through intelligent adaptation of fundamental social templates to specific environmental conditions and population compositions. The resulting system, resilient against both external threats and internal tensions, represents one of nature's most elegant solutions to the challenge of cooperative survival among prey species. As night fully descends outside our earthen sanctuary, the Warren completes its transition to evening configuration: sentry positions fully staffed, nursery areas clustered for optimal warmth conservation, escape routes cleared and verified, social bonds reaffirmed through final grooming exchanges. In the soft darkness of our underground home, surrounded by the gentle sounds of Warren mates breathing and the earthy scent of our collective presence, the true meaning of our social structure becomes clear. We are not merely individuals sharing space for convenience, but an integrated community whose cooperative complexity provides our best defense against a dangerous world. Twilight courtship dances. The transition between day and evening brings a particular quality of light to the Valine, neither the harsh revelation of full sun nor the concealing mystery of true darkness, but something uniquely in between. This liminal illumination transforms the familiar landscape, lending enchantment to ordinary features and softening harsh edges into gentle suggestions. For our kind, this represents the ideal conditions for more elaborate social interactions, particularly those related to courtship and bonding. I emerge from the Warren entrance into this magical threshold time, my senses immediately registering the changed atmosphere. The air carries the lingering warmth of departed sunlight, while cooler undertones rise from shadowed areas, creating complex thermal currents across my whiskers. Scents intensify in the dampening air, plant exhalations mixing with soil moisture to create an olfactory richness unavailable during drier daylight hours. Sounds carry differently. In this transitional period, bird calls becoming more melodic as they establish evening territories, insect choruses building toward night symphony, the general acoustic landscape acquiring depth and resonance, absent from daytime clarity. Other Warren members appear at various exit points, their emergence following similar patterns: careful initial pause for threat assessment, gradual progression from underground to surface, deliberate scent marking of threshold areas, establishing continued territorial presence. The gathering that develops differs subtly from morning feeding congregations or midday rest groups. Bodies hold themselves with slightly altered posture, more elegance in movement, greater attention to fur presentation, deliberate positioning to catch favorable light angles. Even without human language concepts of beauty or attraction, we nonetheless respond to aesthetic elements appropriate to our species. The initial interactions maintain formal characteristics, appropriate distance preserved, standard greeting behaviors exchanged, typical movement patterns observed. Yet beneath these conventional frameworks, subtle signals communicate expanded possibilities. A mature female positions herself with unusual visibility on a small rise, her grooming activities more elaborate than practical necessity requires. A male in his prime conducts an exaggerated stretching sequence, demonstrating physical capability while maintaining casual appearance. Younger unpaired members move with heightened awareness of potential social opportunities, their attention shifting between established couples for behavioral modeling and available peers for compatibility assessment. As twilight deepens, the invisible barriers of ordinary spatial protocols gradually relax. Individuals previously maintaining standard separation begin experimental proximity reductions, testing potential partners' receptiveness through incremental approach patterns. These delicate negotiations proceed through established sequences: initial, aligned movement, suggesting mutual interest; parallel grooming indicating basic compatibility acceptance; brief, physical contacts, confirming comfort with increased intimacy. At each stage, either participant may disengage without confrontation, the system designed for maximum choice freedom within minimal conflict risk. The most established pairs, those with previous successful breeding history, demonstrate more confident interaction patterns. Their movements synchronize with practiced familiarity, bodies orienting toward each other with automatic preference, grooming exchanges flowing with efficient tenderness. These partnerships maintain primary bonding through consistent small attentions rather than dramatic displacer. Preferred clover stem brought as offering, a vigilance position adjusted to provide better partner coverage. Resting arrangements, optimized for mutual contact comfort. For newer potential pairings, the courtship process involves more elaborate behavioral demonstrations. A particularly striking sequence unfolds between a mature female and newly adult male near the eastern Warren entrance. Their initial circling observes perfect social distance, while establishing mutual interest through coordinated directional shifts. As compatibility signals increase, the male initiates the characteristic approach retreat pattern, moving forward with deliberate slowness, pausing for response assessment, retreating slightly to demonstrate respect for choice autonomy, advancing again when invitation cues appear. The female responds with equally sophisticated signaling, body-oriented receptively, while maintaining composed independence, ear positions, communicating both interest and evaluation. Scent marking, subtly increased to enhance chemical compatibility assessment. The delicate negotiation continues through progressively more complex interaction phase synchronized movement testing coordination capabilities, parallel feeding demonstrating resource-sharing compatibility, brief contact exchanges confirming physical affinity. The most dramatic courtship behaviors appear as twilight reaches its perfect midpoint between day and night. Several well-matched pairs engage in the characteristic figure-8 leaping patterns unique to breeding season social display. These remarkable sequences combine practical demonstration of physical fitness with undeniable aesthetic elements bodies, launching in graceful arcs over grass tussocks and small vegetation clusters, trajectories crossing in perfectly timed intersections that require exceptional spatial awareness, landings executed with deliberate lightness that showcases muscular control. These aerial dances serve multiple evolutionary purposes simultaneously. The physical demands reveal genetic quality through movement efficiency, stamina demonstration, and coordination precision. The synchronized elements indicate communication compatibility essential for successful cooperative parenting. The visible joy apparent in performancers fully extended, body posture demonstrating confident vitality, occasional mid-air twists of pure exuberance exegests, emotional capacity contributing to lasting bond formation. Yet beneath the beautiful social choreography lies the unchangeable biological reality of our existence as prey species. Even during these courtship interactions, vigilance never fully relaxes. Ears periodically interrupt their social signaling functions for systematic threat scanning. Bodies maintain ground contact patterns that permit instant direction change or acceleration if needed. Positioning relative to cover and warren entrances remains strategically sound despite romantic considerations. The potential for immediate transition from courtship dance to survival sprint remains constant background awareness. The sophisticated hormonal systems driving these behaviors represent evolutionary marvels of biochemical balance. The same chemical messengers that create attraction, receptiveness, and social bonding motivation simultaneously sharpen protective instincts and enhance environmental awareness. Unlike many species whose mating behaviors involve vulnerability through attention narrowing or defensive capability reduction, our reproduction-related neurology actually improves certain survival. Parameters reaction time often measures faster during courtship periods. Scent discrimination shows heightened sensitivity. Visual motion detection demonstrates improved accuracy. The ethical dimensions of reproduction in prey existence involve complex calculations beyond immediate attraction. Potential partners assess each other not merely for physical characteristics, but for traits directly impacting offspring survival, probability, the female's tunnel construction skills, suggesting birthing chamber quality, the male's vigilance patterns, indicating protection, reliability, mutual grooming, thoroughness, predicting parasite control effectiveness for future young. The resulting selection process prioritizes genuine survival advantages rather than arbitrary display features, creating partnerships optimized for successful reproduction within challenging conditions. The twilight courting ground becomes theater for multiple relationship phases simultaneously. Newly forming pairs engage in initial compatibility testing through basic proximity and movement coordination. Established partnerships reinforce bonds through efficient mutual maintenance behaviors. Breeding pairs already expecting offspring demonstrate protective positioning and nutritional support exchanges. Previous partners, separated by circumstance or season, assess potential reconnection through cautious proximity experiments. The resulting social tableau contains remarkable complexity, despite its outward appearance of simple animal gathering. As twilight deepens toward true evening, the courtship interactions gradually incorporate more direct physical contact. Mutual grooming sequences extend in duration and intimacy, focusing on hard-to-reach areas, requiring trust and cooperation. Brief body-side contacts evolve into more sustained proximity, testing thermal compatibility and movement coordination in closer quarters. Scent-marking behaviors become more specifically directed, creating chemical signals uniquely identifying potential partnerships rather than general territorial presence. The communication occurring through these exchanges achieves remarkable sophistication despite lacking verbal components. Ear positions convey emotional states with precise gradations, fully erect, indicating alert interest, slightly angled, suggesting playful invitation, gentle relaxation, communicating comfort and trust. Body postures similarly transmit detailed messages, the degree of weight shift toward a partner indicating attraction, intensity, spine curvature expressing confidence or uncertainty, tail position signaling excitement or contemplation. As true darkness approaches, the courtship gatherings gradually transition toward conclusion. Established pairs move with unhurried coordination toward selected rest locations, some returning underground to private warren sections, others choosing surface spots, offering both intimacy and security. Newer connections make tentative arrangements for continued interaction during coming days, their movements suggesting planned coordination of feeding territories or mutual grooming appointments. Those without successful pairing outcomes return to standard social spacing, the unsuccessful courtship attempts resolving without apparent distress or conflict. The entire twilight courtship sequence, from initial emergence through elaborate display to conclusion arrangements, proceeds with remarkable civility despite its fundamentally competitive nature. Rejected approach attempts receive gentle rather than harsh redirection. Superior physical demonstrations avoid unnecessary humiliation of less capable performers. Resource disparities between potential partners find diplomatic accommodation rather than exploitation opportunity. The resulting system maximizes reproductive efficiency while minimizing social damage that would compromise essential cooperation structures. As I observe the final pairings moving toward their evening destinations, the true wonder of this social choreography becomes apparent. Within the harsh constraints of prey existence, where each exposure represents survival risk, where energy expenditure requires careful budgeting, where predator presence remains constant, background, reality, we nonetheless create space for connection, for selection based on compatibility rather than mere convenience, for interactions containing elements of genuine preference beyond strict biological imperative. The twilight courtship dances, with their figure-8 leaps tracing momentary freedom from gravity's constraints, their synchronized movements demonstrating mutual attention beyond mere proximity, their gentle negotiations, preserving choice dignity within biological necessity, represent something beyond simple reproduction mechanics. They contain the essence of how life persists in beauty, despite danger-finding moments of grace within vigilance, creating connection within necessary caution, expressing joy within the discipline of survival. As darkness claims the valley and the courtship grounds gradually empty, their invisible legacy remains: partnerships formed or strengthened, genetic selections made with unconscious wisdom, social bonds reinforced through shared ritual. Tomorrow's dawn will return us to the more prosaic business of survival. But these twilight interactions ensure that survival serves purpose beyond mere continuation, that the endless relay of generations carries forward not just genetic material, but the capacity for connection that makes the risk of existence worthwhile. Night raids. In the farmer's garden, patience comes naturally to those with short lives. In the cool quiet of dusk, as the gardener's boots crunch away and the back door slams with finality, we wait. 100 heartbeats more, 200. Our noses twitch in the gathering darkness, testing the air for lingering human scent. The garden calls with promises of abundance beyond the wild margins where we usually feed. The others look to me, whiskers trembling with anticipation. I am neither the oldest nor the largest, but I have made this journey 7 times before. In bunny terms, that makes me something of a sage. My left ear flicks twice. Our signal. The time has come. We emerge from the hedgerow's protection in staggered formation, moving like ripples across the moonlit meadow. The open ground between safety and bounty stretches wider than comfort allows. Our shadows dance long and vulnerable against silver-kissed grass. Each hop carries risk. Each moment exposed is a gamble with life itself. The moon watches, indifferent to our plight, casting just enough light to navigate by but also enough to be seen. The farmer's garden lies behind a humble boundary, chicken wire and wooden stakes that might deter the casual visitor but presents merely a puzzle to the determined. We approach the perimeter with practiced caution. My companions press close, their breath warm against my fur, as I nudge the place where the wire has been loosened by generations of my ancestors. A small inheritance, this secret passage, more valuable than any warren. The wire gives with a barely perceptible creak. One by one, we squeeze through the gap, fur catching momentarily before releasing us into paradise. The garden smells of earth and growth and water, of sweetness and green life. The lettuce rows stand in orderly attention, their leaves catching dew and moonlight in equal measure. Nearby, the feathery tops of carrots wave in the gentlest breeze, betraying the treasures buried beneath. But we dare not rush. The farmer's dog sleeps in a wooden house not 30 hops away. Its ears, even in slumber, remain alert to unfamiliar sounds. We move like shadows among shadows, our paws finding soft earth between plantings. No sudden movements, no excited thumps. This raid requires discipline above all else. My youngest companion, barely past her first moon, quivers with excitement beside me. I nudge her gently toward the outer lettuce leaves, the sacrifice the garden can most easily bear. We are not mindless thieves. We take only what won't be immediately noticed. The outermost leaves, the occasional fallen tomato, the garden's surplus, rather than its heart. The first bite is always a revelation. Wild greens have their own complex flavors, bitter and sharp and vital. But these cultivated leaves, they carry sweetness that borders on decadence. Tender and unmarked by insect or weather. Perfect in a way nature rarely achieves without human intervention. We nibble with delicate precision, making clean cuts that might be mistaken for insect damage rather than the systematic harvest of hungry bunnies. Our small group spreads throughout the lettuce row, each finding their place in this midnight feast. Communication happens through subtle ear positions and the occasional nose touch. When the young one ventures too close to the carrot tops, I redirect her with a gentle body check. Not tonight. The disturbed soil would give us away too easily. Time moves differently during these garden raids. Fear stretches seconds into eternities, while pleasure compresses minutes into heartbeats. We exist in this strange temporal bubble, hyper-aware and yet lost in sensation. My ears rotate constantly, radar dishes scanning for danger, while my teeth work methodically through the bounty before me. The ethical whisper of our actions isn't lost on me. These plants were sown by human hands, watered and tended and protected. They represent labor and investment. In taking them, we cross a boundary beyond the physical. Yet, in the wider accounting of things, haven't humans taken far more from us? Fields and forests cleared, warrens destroyed beneath foundation concrete, ancient roots severed by roads. Perhaps these lettuce leaves represent a small rebalancing of accounts. A cloud passes over the moon, and darkness deepens momentarily. In that instant, the dog stirs in its sleep. A low whimper escapes its dreaming mind. We freeze as one organism, 30 paws suddenly still against the earth, 30 pairs of lungs holding breath. Even our hearts seem to pause between beats. Discovery would mean more than just the loss of tonight's feast. The farmer might set traps, repair the fence, release the dog earlier in the evening. The cloud passes. Moonlight returns. The dog settles back into deeper sleep with a sigh that carries across the still garden. Slowly, cautiously, we resume our meal, but the spell is broken. The reminder of danger has sobered even the most enthusiastic among us. My right ear signals a new message. 10 more minutes, then retreat. We make the most of our remaining time, selecting the most nutritious leaves, filling our bellies for the night ahead. Wild rabbits spend nearly every waking moment eating, a necessary consequence of extracting nutrition from tough plant matter. These cultivated greens will sustain us longer, give us rare hours of rest. When the time comes to leave, we withdraw in the same staggered pattern we arrived in. Last in, first out. I watch as my companions slip through the fence gap one by one, their forms momentarily silhouetted against the meadow beyond before disappearing into the greater darkness. I take one final nibble, a small lettuce heart too tempting to resist, before following them through the wire. The return journey feels shorter despite moving more slowly, weighted with our harvest. The meadow grass whispers against our undersides as we hop toward home. Not the frantic dash of our arrival, but a measured retreat, satisfied and sleepy. The warren entrance welcomes us with familiar sense of earth and family. We descend into communal warmth, bringing with us the subtle garden fragrances that cling to our fur. Underground, safe from owls and foxes, we groom each other methodically, removing any evidence of our adventure. The taste of lettuce lingers on our tongues. The younger ones drift to sleep quickly, their small sides rising and falling in the darkness. I remain awake a little longer, replaying our garden raid, noting improvements for next time. Perhaps a different entry point. Perhaps one fewer companion to reduce our visibility. The farmer's garden will remain our secret treasure, a risk worth taking when the moon is right and the dog sleeps soundly. In dreams that come later, I hop through endless rows of perfect lettuce, untroubled by boundaries or limits. But even in those dreams, my ears never stop turning, listening for the dangers that define a rabbit's life, garden feast or no. Encounter at the edge of the road. Dawn brushes the eastern sky with pale fingers when I first approach the thing humans call a road. The Warren elders speak of these black rivers that never flow, ancient warnings passed down through generations of twitching noses and alert ears. I've seen them from a distance, of course. We all have. But necessity drives me closer today. The clover growing along its edge is too abundant to ignore in this hungry season before summer's full bounty arrives. The asphalt radiates warmth even in the early light, a strange contrast to the cool earth beneath my paws. Heat rises in visible waves, carrying unfamiliar scents. Acrid rubber, something sharp and petroleum-based, the lingering trace of hot metal. My nose works overtime, cataloging these alien smells, filing them away in the library of survival knowledge every rabbit builds throughout their brief life. I approach cautiously, placing each paw with deliberate precision. The boundary between natural earth and human construction is stark, grass giving way to gravel, then to the smooth black surface itself. I stretch forward, allowing my front paws to touch the road, while my back legs remain tensed on familiar ground, ready to propel me to safety. The texture surprises me. Not cold like stone, not yielding like soil. Something manufactured and uniform, in a way nature never is. The warmth seeps into my pores, not unpleasant but unsettling in its artificiality. This heat comes not from the sun or decomposition, but from the road's unnatural ability to capture and hold the previous day's sunlight. I venture further, all four paws now on asphalt, experiencing a moment of strange disconnection from the earth that has always supported me. Clover beckons from the far side, its sweet scent carrying across the human barrier. 3 quick hops would take me there, 2 if I stretch my legs to their full capacity. The crossing itself is not the challenge. It's what might come while crossing that sends my heart hammering against my ribs. I've seen the metal monsters that humans ride inside, witnessed their speed and indifference, smelled the aftermath when one of my kind misjudged their timing. My whiskers quiver with indecision. Behind me lies safety, but scarcity. Ahead lies abundance, but risk. The calculus of survival plays out with each rapid heartbeat. And then, decision made, I begin my crossing. One powerful push launches me forward. Midway across, my sensitive ears detect a vibration through the asphalt, subtle but growing stronger. A sound follows, still distant, but approaching fast. One of the metal beasts. Time fragments into crystalline moments of pure instinct. My muscles receive contradictory commands simultaneously. Run forward, run back, freeze in place, zigzag unpredictably. For a crucial half-second, these competing impulses create paralysis. I become the very embodiment of a rabbit caught in headlights. The approaching vehicle rounds the bend, its bright eyes cutting through the dawn haze. Light washes over me, unnaturally white and blinding. My pupils contract painfully. In this moment, I am neither thinking nor deciding. I am pure reaction, ancestors' voices screaming through my blood. And the oldest voice of all commands, freeze. This freeze response, so often misunderstood by humans as stupidity or panic, represents millennia of evolutionary wisdom. Movement attracts predators' attention. Stillness sometimes means survival. Against certain predators, foxes, coyotes, humans with projectile weapons, a stationary target is harder to acquire than a moving one. But against 2 tons of speeding metal, this ancient wisdom becomes deadly miscalculation. Fortunately, some deeper survival circuit overrides the freeze, just as the vehicle swerves slightly. My back legs, compressed springs of muscle and sinew, launch me forward in a desperate bound. Wind from the passing monster tugs at my fur. The ground trembles beneath me. A blaring sound, the human's cry of annoyance or warning. Doppler shifts from high to low as it continues down the road without stopping. I tumble into the roadside grass, heart threatening to burst from exertion and fear. For long minutes, I can only lie there, sides heaving, processing how narrowly death passed me by. Eventually, my breathing slows. The sweet scent of clover reaches my nose again, reminding me why I risked everything. On shaky legs, I begin to feed, tearing at the green bounty with a renewed appreciation for life itself. As I eat, thoughts form around the encounter. This road, this human intrusion, represents a fundamental reshaping of rabbit existence. For countless generations, my ancestors faced dangers they evolved to understand. The shadow of wings overhead, the musty scent of fox, the distinctive sound of a predator moving through undergrowth. Dangers with rules and patterns. Dangers we could adapt to through natural selection and learned behavior. But roads and vehicles follow human patterns, not natural ones. They appear without warning, move faster than anything in nature, save lightning, and follow schedules disconnected from the rhythms of sun and season. We must adapt ancient instincts to these modern hazards without the luxury of evolutionary time. Those of us who succeed pass our knowledge to offspring. Those who fail become brief smears of fur and bone, forgotten lessons on the asphalt. The clover sustains me as these thoughts meander through my rabbit consciousness. Not in these exact words, perhaps, but in understandings just as profound. We are not the simple creatures humans believe us to be. Our lives may be brief, our concerns immediate, but we perceive the changing world with clarity born of necessity. I finish feeding and look back across the road toward my warren. The crossing must be made again, the risk taken anew. This time, I approach differently, pausing at the edge to feel vibrations through my sensitive pores. I turn my ears independently, scanning for sounds from either direction. Only when satisfied do I make my dash, a grey-brown blur against black asphalt, committed fully to speed rather than caution. Safely across, I pause beneath a bramble to process this new knowledge. The road will remain a feature of our territory, Its dangers a calculation we must make when hunger drives us toward its edges. I will share what I've learned with the others through example and behavior. Watch longer before crossing. Feel the road through your paws. When you commit to the dash, make it swift and direct. Never freeze. As morning advances, I make my way back to the warren entrance, where several younger rabbits greet me with curious sniffs. They detect the unfamiliar road scents clinging to my fur, the rich clover I've been feeding on. In their eyes, I see something new. Not quite respect, but recognition of experience survived. Without words, they absorb the subtle changes in my behavior, the new caution I bring back from the asphalt edge. One day soon, hunger or curiosity will drive them toward that same boundary. Perhaps my experience will improve their chances. This is how we adapt, not through speech or writing, but through the embodied knowledge passed between generations. The human world expands ever into ours, forcing constant recalibration of ancient instincts. Those who cannot adapt disappear. Those who learn too slowly never become teachers. I descend into the warren's cool darkness, the day's adventure settling into memory. My encounter at the edge of the road has changed me in ways both subtle and profound. I am still rabbit, still driven by the same fundamental needs and fears, but I carry new understanding about the human world that increasingly defines the boundaries of our existence. Tonight I will dream of black rivers that never flow, of blinding lights and rushing wind. But I will also dream of sweet clover made somehow sweeter by the risk undertaken to reach it. In this balance of danger and reward, of adaptation and tradition, the continuing story of rabbits in a human-dominated landscape unfolds one cautious hop at a time. Season of white breath. The world changes with little warning. One evening we hop through familiar territories under a canopy of stars, and by morning everything carries a delicate silver coating. First frost has arrived, transforming our landscape into something both beautiful and treacherous. My whiskers, usually sensitive instruments for navigating the world, now collect tiny ice crystals that catch the early light, like miniature prisms. Each breath emerges as a cloud of white, visible evidence of life's warmth meeting winter's advance. This morning ritual, the careful testing of transformed terrain, feels ancient and new simultaneously. My paws leave perfect imprints in the frost-stiffened grass, temporary signatures soon erased by the rising sun. The cold seeps upward through my foot pads, a warning of what's to come. Those of us who have survived previous winters recognize these early signs. The younger ones hop about with undiminished energy, marveling at the strange new texture beneath them, unaware that this gentle warning precedes months of genuine hardship. My body has been preparing without conscious thought. For weeks now, my summer coat has been shedding in small tufts, making way for the denser winter fur that will soon reach its full thickness. I spend additional hours each day grooming, working loose the lighter strands, encouraging the growth of the richer, darker undercoat that will insulate against coming cold. This fur-thickening ritual connects me to ancestors who survived countless winters before human landscapes transformed our territories. Other changes happen beneath the visible. My metabolism shifts subtly, extracting more energy from each mouthful of increasingly fibrous vegetation. My body becomes more efficient, anticipating scarcity through mechanisms encoded in my very cells. Even my droppings change. Smaller, darker, evidence of a system determined to waste nothing. Winter's approach triggers survival systems so deeply embedded they require no thought, no decision. Only the surrender to ancient wisdom carried in blood and bone. The warren entrance shows signs of preparation as well. Overnight, others have begun the seasonal narrowing of our doorways, pushing soil to create smaller openings that will better contain precious heat during the coldest nights. Inside, nesting chambers are being reworked, expanded slightly to accommodate more bodies huddling together, lined with the last remaining soft grasses and fallen feathers collected during autumn twilights. Even the tunnels seem to shift, angling more deliberately downward toward the stable temperatures of deeper earth. But it is food that occupies my most urgent attention, as frost becomes a daily rather than occasional occurrence. The abundance of summer feels like a distant dream now. Green growth slows and then stops entirely. Tender shoots toughen, drawing their sweetness back into roots buried safely below the frost line. The strategies that sustained us through plentiful months no longer suffice. New approaches become necessary. I lead a small group to the base of a young aspen tree at the meadow's edge. Its smooth bark, still relatively thin, contains nutrients and moisture we can access with determined gnawing. We work in shifts, our sharp incisors making precise cuts in geometric patterns around the trunk's circumference. Careful not to wring the tree completely, which would kill it, eliminating future harvests. We remove small sections of bark to expose the cambium layer beneath. This thin, sweet layer between bark and heartwood sustains many creatures through winter's leanest periods. The taste is astringent, but not unpleasant. More importantly, it contains critical nutrients, increasingly scarce elsewhere in our territory. The younger rabbits watch and learn, their initial hesitation giving way to hunger's practical education. They must understand these alternative food sources before deep snow makes such lessons impossible to conduct safely. As morning advances toward afternoon, I move our foraging party toward the abandoned apple orchard that borders our territory's western edge. Beneath the gnarled trees, partially hidden by fallen leaves and early snow dustings, lie the forgotten fruits of autumn, overlooked by human harvesters or deliberately left as too imperfect for their standards. These apples represent caloric treasure. Many have begun their return to earth, their sweetness concentrating as flesh breaks down into simpler sugars. We feed on these windfalls with focused intensity, knowing each one might represent days of survival when other foods become inaccessible. But winter survival depends on more than immediate consumption. Like many creatures facing seasonal scarcity, we practice a form of storage, not as elaborate as squirrels with their meticulous nut burying, but effective nonetheless. Throughout autumn's gradual cooling, I've been visiting certain locations known only to me, digging small chambers just large enough to hold particular treasures. The starchy roots of wild carrots carefully extracted without destroying the plant, seed caches collected from summer grasses, even certain nuts with shells thin enough for our teeth to breach. These hidden pantries follow no obvious pattern that would allow a competing forager to discover them all. Some lie near distinctive landmarks, the lightning-struck oak, the boulder shaped like a crouching fox. Others rely on subtler markers, decipherable only through my internal map. The third juniper past the stream bend, 11 hops from the thorn bush with the peculiar twist. I visit several now, mentally cataloguing their contents, adding fresh finds when possible, assessing how long each might sustain us when snow blankets everything in undifferentiated white. By mid-afternoon, the brief warmth that dissolved morning's frost has already begun its retreat. The air carries a particular stillness that those of us sensitive to weather changes recognize immediately. Snow approaches. Not the light dusting that might melt away by noon, but something more substantial. The first significant snowfall that will reshape our world until spring's distant return. We make our way back toward the warren, with purposeful hops, no energy wasted on play or exploration. The main entrance has been further modified in our absence. Now barely large enough for an adult rabbit to squeeze through, its narrowed opening will prevent snow from drifting inside while retaining precious warmth. I enter with the others close behind, feeling the immediate temperature difference as we descend. Underground, the earth maintains a more constant state, buffered from extremes. Not warm by any human definition, but significantly more hospitable than the surface will soon become. As darkness approaches above ground, an unusual quiet settles over the warren. Typically, dusk signals the beginning of our most active period, when we would emerge to feed under cover of night. But tonight, instinct and experience keep us below. The coming snowstorm dictates a temporary change in patterns. Instead of dispersing for solitary feeding, we gather in the warren's central chamber, a space rarely used during warmer seasons. What happens next represents one of the most beautiful adaptations of rabbit life to winter's challenges. As temperatures drop further, we arrange ourselves without obvious communication into a living insulation system. The eldest and youngest members position themselves at the center, while stronger adults form an outer ring. Bodies press close, sharing warmth, creating a collective entity greater than individual rabbits. A huddle forms, not through conscious planning but through instinctive choreography, refined across countless winters. Within this huddle, something remarkable occurs. Our breathing synchronizes gradually, dozens of lungs finding common rhythm. Inhale, exhale, creating a gentle wave that passes through our gathered bodies. This synchronized breathing generates heat more efficiently than random patterns would allow. It also produces a meditative calm that slows our metabolism slightly, conserving energy during a time when every calorie matters. The youngest kits, experiencing their first winter, initially fidget within this arrangement, but the steady rhythm of shared breath eventually lulls them into stillness. They learn through direct experience what no explicit teaching could convey. The warren survives winter, not as individuals, but as community. Their small bodies relax as they absorb warmth from all sides, their breathing joining the collective pattern. Outside, snow begins in earnest, transforming the world with silent persistence. Inside, warmth circulates through our huddle. I find myself positioned near the outer ring. My thicker coat, better suited to buffer against the tunnel's chill than a younger rabbit's would be. The pressure of bodies against mine creates not discomfort, but reassurance, connection, purpose. My heartbeat slows to match the communal rhythm. My thoughts drift like the snow above. Winter teaches harsh lessons about limits and mortality. Not all who experience this first frost will survive to see spring's return. Some will succumb to predators, made desperate by their own hunger. Others will misjudge the safety of a foraging expedition during a temporary thaw. Still others will simply reach the natural end of a rabbit's brief span, their final breaths joining the white clouds of winter air. But in this moment, huddled in synchronous breathing beneath the gathering snow, we exist in perfect adaptation to circumstances beyond our control, neither fighting against winter's reality nor surrendering to its harshest potential. We have found the middle path. We have transformed limitation into opportunity for deepened connection. We have made of necessity a kind of grace. As true night falls, bringing temperatures that would challenge even our thickest coats if faced alone, I drift toward sleep surrounded by the gentle sound of shared breathing. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. Tunnels to dig through snow for access to cached food. Careful assessments of predator risk in a landscape transformed by white. But those are tomorrow's concerns. Tonight, in this moment of collective warmth and white breath, winter's first true test finds us ready, resilient, and together. Fox in the moon mist. Midnight arrived without incident. The warren quiet, save for the soft breathing of sleeping rabbits. I had taken the innermost tunnel to my favorite resting chamber, a small alcove just large enough for three but currently occupied by only myself. Sleep came easily after a full day of cautious foraging between snowdrifts. Dreams of spring clover had just begun to form behind my closed eyes when everything changed in an instant. The alarm comes not as sound but as scent, sharp, musky, unmistakable. Fox. Not the distant passing of a predator on some other business, but the focused presence of a hunter who has identified our warren as tonight's opportunity. My eyes snap open in perfect darkness. My nose twitches rapidly, gauging direction and proximity through the varying intensity of that dreaded smell. Close. Too close. The warning passes through the warren like electricity. a chain reaction of thumping back legs against earth floors, the rabbit telegraph transmitting danger without vocalization. Within seconds, every adult in our community is awake, frozen in initial assessment. The fox scent carries undertones that identify it as the large male who has been hunting our territory since autumn. Experienced, clever, patient, I make my way swiftly toward the main chamber, where decisions happen in moments of crisis. The fox has already begun excavation at the northeast entrance, not our main doorway, but a secondary exit we use less frequently. Smart, he remembers from previous attempts. The vibration of his digging paws transmits through the packed earth, providing data about his size and determination. He will break through within minutes. Options crystallize with the clarity that mortal danger brings. We could retreat deeper, using the warren's complexity to hide. But this fox has demonstrated persistence before, willing to dig for hours once committed. We could attempt to escape through other exits, but moon mist hangs heavy tonight, turning the meadow into a luminous stage where movement will be instantly visible. Neither choice promises survival for all. The decision forms without formal process, more felt than articulated. We will make our dash, but not randomly or individually. The northeast exit, already compromised, will become our diversion. The youngest runners will exit there first, scattering in multiple directions, drawing the fox's immediate attention with their movement. Moments later, the rest will use the south and west exits, moving in precisely planned escape routes, while the predator's focus is temporarily divided. I position myself near the south exit, prepared to lead one group toward the distant briar patch that offers protection too thorny for fox pursuit. Around me, others prepare for their assigned directions. The creek bed, the fallen log complex, the stone wall remains. We communicate final coordination through subtle positioning, ear angles, and body alignment. A lifetime of shared risk has made words unnecessary. The fox breaks through with a shower of dirt and root fragments. Moonlight floods the exposed tunnel, momentarily blinding after complete darkness. The first wave of young rabbits launches into the night exactly as planned, small forms zigzagging with deliberate randomness. Through the tunnel, I glimpse the fox's reaction. Momentary surprise followed by predatory focus, his body coiling to chase the nearest target. 3 heartbeats later, I lead my group into the moon mist. The world outside has transformed into something otherworldly. Familiar terrain rendered strange by mist and moonlight. Shadows lack definition. Distances become deceptive, but my mental map remains precise, a survival adaptation more reliable than visual navigation alone. My path is predetermined. 30 degrees west of the large boulder, 12 rapid hops, then sharp turn south toward the briar sanctuary. The zigzag sprint follows patterns encoded in rabbit DNA, since our earliest ancestors faced their first predators, never straight, never predictable. The angular changes in direction exploit the physics of pursuit. A fox's greater speed becomes disadvantage when forced to make sharp course corrections. Each turn bleeds momentum from the predator, while prey loses comparatively little. It's mathematics expressed through muscle and reflex. Behind me, my group maintains formation through the programmed chaos of our escape. We move not as individuals, but as a coordinated system, each rabbit's position influencing the others. When I cut right, the rabbit behind me cuts left, creating maximum confusion for any pursuing predator. The pattern cascades through our group, an elegant solution to survival emerging from collective movement. My mind processes escape routes with extraordinary clarity, as if overlaying a diagram onto the misty landscape. Each potential path branches into probabilities. This way offers speed but exposure. That way provides cover, but obstacles that might slow crucial seconds. My pause seem to make these calculations independently of conscious thought, finding the optimal balance between conflicting variables with each frantic heartbeat. Halfway to the briar patch, Sound confirms our strategy's partial success. The fox's frustrated snarl comes from the meadow's opposite direction. He committed to pursuing the first group, and now realizes his error as more rabbits stream from multiple exits. He cannot chase all. He cannot predict which group might contain the weakest target. His advantage of surprise has evaporated into the moon mist, but safety remains distant. Other predators may be drawn by the commotion. The fox might abandon his current chase and cut across the meadow to intercept my group. The briar patch itself might harbor snakes or weasels with their own hunger. A rabbit's calculations never end, never settle into certainty. Survival requires constant reassessment, constant adaptation. We reach the briar sanctuary with burning lungs and trembling muscles. The narrow openings between thorny branches admit rabbit bodies, while excluding larger predators. We push through carefully, accepting minor scratches as fair exchange for the protection offered. Inside this natural fortress, we collect ourselves in the relative safety of interwoven brambles. Our breathing gradually slows. Our heartbeats step back from the threshold of explosion. Through gaps in the briar tangle, I watch for pursuers. The fox appears at the meadow's edge, moonlight gleaming on his russet coat. He surveys our hiding place with calculating eyes, but makes no attempt to breach its thorny defense. After marking the briar patch boundary with his scent, a promise of future attention, he trots away to seek easier hunting elsewhere. This night, at least, our strategy has succeeded. The after-episode tremble begins as immediate danger recedes. This physiological response, often misinterpreted as fear, actually represents the body's recalibration after flooding with survival chemicals. My muscles twitch involuntarily. My breathing comes in small, uneven gasps. Even my vision pulses slightly with each heartbeat. The others experience the same reset, our small bodies working through the biochemical aftermath of mortal threat. This tremble serves crucial purposes beyond physical recovery. During these moments, the brain processes what just occurred with extraordinary retention. Each decision, each movement, each sensory input gets evaluated and filed into permanent memory. What worked? What failed? What could improve future survival chances? Learning etches itself into muscle memory more effectively during this trembling state than any other time. I replay the midnight escape sequence with heightened clarity, the fox's approach angle, the coordination of our exit strategy, the optimal zigzag pattern that maximized distance gained. I note how one younger rabbit nearly stumbled during a direction change, marking a need for practice on uneven terrain. I catalogue the fox's behavior patterns for future reference. His preference for the northeast approach, his momentary hesitation when faced with multiple targets. As the trembling subsides, a different kind of knowledge settles into my awareness. This episode, though frightening, has strengthened our warren's collective experience. The youngest runners have now survived their first fox encounter, carrying that success in body memory that will inform all future escapes. Those who coordinated our exit strategy have refined their timing through practical application. Even our understanding of this particular fox has deepened, offering advantages for the inevitable next encounter. We remain in the briar sanctuary until false dawn, when predator activity typically diminishes. The return journey to our warren follows indirect routes, with frequent pauses to verify safety. The fox has left distinctive tracks in the dewy grass, a record of his movements that provides additional information for our security. He eventually circled back to our warren, but abandoned further excavation attempts. Another small victory. The northeast entrance requires repair before we can rest. Working together, we push soil and small stones into the breach, compacting the material with our front paws and noses. The younger ones gather fresh grass stems to weave into the reconstructed entry, disguising it from casual detection. Within an hour, the damage has been erased, though the fox's scent lingers as reminder and warning. Finally returning to my sleeping chamber, Exhaustion overtakes the lingering alertness of survival. But before sleep claims me completely, I acknowledge the strange duality of a rabbit's existence. We live perpetually in the space between fragility and resilience. Our bodies remain vulnerable, our individual lives brief. Yet something endures beyond any single rabbit, the accumulated wisdom of countless midnight alarms, countless moon-mist escapes, countless near misses, and narrow survivals. The fox will return, or if not this fox, another predator driven by its own hunger and instincts. The eternal dance between hunter and hunted continues without resolution, each encounter writing its lesson into our collective being. As sleep finally overtakes me, I carry this paradox into dreams. The certainty of danger alongside the hard-won confidence of adaptation. This is what it means to live as rabbit. This is what it means to persist, trembling but undefeated, in a world where every moonrise brings the possibility of becoming another creature's sustenance. In my dreams, I run through endless fields without fear. My movements perfect, my decisions instant and correct. But even in those dreams, my ears never stop turning, listening for the dangers that define a rabbit's life. Springtide burrow expansion. The first whispers of springtide come not as sights or sounds, but as scents and sensations through the earth itself. Deep within the winter-hardened warren, we feel it before we know it. That subtle shift in the density of soil above our heads, the loosening embrace of frost's grip giving way to something softer, more yielding. The ground remembers its true nature after the long freeze. It exhales, and we with it. Morning comes earlier now. The shadows that once stretched long across our entrances withdraw their fingers sooner each day. Light seeps deeper into our tunnels, not with winter's harsh, brittle quality, but with a buttery warmth that coaxes us outward. The older among us recognize these signs with a wisdom carried in blood and bone across countless generations. The younglings sense it too, a restlessness in their hindquarters, an eagerness to bound that cannot be contained by winter's cautious hopping. The time for expansion has arrived. We gather in the central chamber, our breath visible less often now in the warming air. Noses twitch in shared understanding. No leader declares the beginning. No command is given. We simply know, as we have always known, that the soil calls to our paws. The first digger approaches the eastern wall, where the ground has proven forgiving in seasons past. His claws, kept sharp through winter's careful grooming, meet earth with reverence. The sound is soft, almost imperceptible, a gentle scrape that speaks of possibility. Others join, forming a line of industrious bodies. We work in shifts, an unspoken choreography passed down through bloodlines. Those with stronger forelimbs break new ground, loosening packed earth with practiced strokes. Behind them, the transporters gather the spoil, pushing it backward with powerful kicks that send it flying between their hind legs. At the rear, the arrangers distribute the excavated soil, tamping it into abandoned tunnels, or directing it toward the surface exits where it will later nourish spring's first tender shoots. The earth yields differently throughout the burrow's circumference. Along the northern edge, clay binds stubbornly, requiring the strongest diggers with their broad forepaws and stubborn determination. The southern walls offer sandier passage, quicker to yield but demanding careful reinforcement to prevent collapse. We know these differences intimately, this geography of our underground world, reading the soil as clearly as you might read these words. Hours pass in rhythmic labor. The scent of fresh earth fills our nostrils, that complex bouquet of minerals, dormant roots, and microscopic life awakening from winter's pause. It is the perfume of promise, of safety being crafted by our own efforts. Occasionally, a digger encounters a hibernating earthworm, curled in its winter stillness. We work around these sleeping neighbors, leaving them undisturbed in their tiny chambers. All creatures deserve their space beneath the warming ground. By midday, The main passage extends 7 body lengths into new territory. The chamber takes shape not through conscious design, but through ancestral memory guiding each scrape and pat. We instinctively arch the ceiling to a height that allows our ears to stand partially upright while seated, the perfect dimension for comfort without excess. Too high, and predator sounds from above become difficult to discern. Too low, and we cannot gather in proper communion. The youngest among us watch from safe distances, their education in warren building beginning with observation. They will not join the digging teams until their 3rd spring, when their muscles have developed the necessary strength and endurance. For now, they memorize the techniques, the angle at which the most efficient diggers hold their paws, the method of testing soil density with gentle preliminary scratches, the warning signs of potential collapse that experienced builders can sense through whiskers alone. As afternoon stretches its golden light across the meadow above, we address the question of drainage. Water is both necessity and threat in the burrow world. The eldest female, her fur silvered around the muzzle from many winters, thumps her hind foot twice, the signal for attention. She demonstrates the subtle downward grade needed for each new tunnel, a barely perceptible slope that will guide unwelcome moisture away from our sleeping chambers. Her techniques have preserved countless warrens through unexpected downpours and spring floods. We observe her wisdom with twitching noses and alert ears. The new nursery chamber demands particular care. Though none of our females carry young yet, the quickening season approaches when our numbers will multiply. The nursery must balance many competing needs. It requires warmth, but also ventilation, security, but access to quick escape routes, privacy, but connection to the community. We begin its excavation at the end point of a winding corridor, one that turns 3 times before reaching the sanctum. Such a path confuses predator scents, keeping little ones safer from probing noses that might reach into our domain. The nursery's walls we smooth with extraordinary care, removing any root fragments or stone protrusions that might harm delicate newborns. The floor we pack especially firm, creating a surface that tiny paws can navigate without sinking or stumbling. Above, we leave a thin ceiling of roots, not for structural support, though they provide this too, but for the comfort of their presence. Hanging root tendrils in the nursery ceiling are tradition, offering something for tiny paws to touch and scent, and know the connection between our underground world and the one above. Midway through the afternoon, our digging reveals a buried treasure, the remnants of last autumn's fallen apple, its flesh now transformed into sweet, dark soil with just a hint of seeds remaining. This discovery brings a moment of celebration. Noses pressed eagerly into this rich material that will strengthen our new walls with its binding properties. We incorporate it reverently, aware that such windfalls are messages from the world above, gifts from the turning seasons that sustain us in ways both seen and unseen. As we work deeper into the new territory, we encounter challenges requiring collective problem-solving. A large stone, unmovable by even our strongest diggers, blocks the planned path of the southeastern tunnel. Rather than abandon the route, we gather in contemplative stillness, whiskers forward in thought. After a communal pause, digging resumes, not against the stone, but around and beneath it. By undercutting its resting place with strategic excavation, we gradually shift its position, eventually rolling it into what becomes an unplanned chamber. The stone remains as a central feature, a solid landmark in our otherwise soft surroundings. In summers to come, it will offer cooling comfort to press against when the earth grows too warm. Ventilation presents its own complex puzzle. A warren requires air movement to remain healthy, yet too many openings invite danger. We create air shafts with precise dimensions, wide enough for oxygen exchange but too narrow for predator entry. These shafts we disguise among grass clumps and beneath shrub overhangs, their openings obscured by strategic placement of excavated soil and carefully arranged fallen leaves. From above, they appear as nothing more than slight depressions in the meadow's contours, invisible to all but the most discerning eye. The position of the sun, though unseen from our underground labor, guides our timing through subtle temperature shifts in the soil around us. As late afternoon approaches, we sense the changing angle of warmth. The new chambers have taken shape, 3 sleeping quarters branching from the main corridor, the nursery secured in its protected position, 2 escape tunnels reaching toward different sections of the meadow, and a small food storage chamber located where the earth stays coolest even in summer's heat. The satisfaction of creation fills our tired bodies. Muscles ache pleasantly from honest effort, from shaping safety with our own paws. The newly exposed earth around us releases ancient scents. Minerals that have rested undisturbed for seasons beyond counting now awakened by our efforts. We breathe deeply of this primal perfume, connecting to countless generations of our kind who have performed this same ritual of spring renewal. As twilight approaches, we gather in the largest new chamber for mutual grooming, tending to soil-packed fur and tired limbs with gentle attention. The youngest female, in her first season of digging participation, receives particular care from the others. Her inexperienced muscles tremble slightly from the day's unaccustomed labor. An elder grooms behind her ears with methodical strokes, a gesture both practical and ceremonial, removing dirt while simultaneously welcoming her into the adult community of builders. The burrow expansion represents more than additional space. It embodies our response to survival's eternal questions. How shall we meet the coming season of abundance? How shall we prepare for new life? How shall we balance safety with necessary risk? The expanded warren answers in the language of packed earth and careful tunnels, in the whispered promise of chambers waiting to cradle new generations. Night falls fully now. Above us, the meadow transforms into its nocturnal aspect. The excavation pauses until tomorrow's light, but sleep comes slowly to our tired bodies. The scent of fresh-turned earth acts as both stimulant and lullaby, awakening ancient memories while simultaneously soothing our present awareness. We breathe in unison in the darkness. Our collective heart beats a gentle percussion against the soft walls we have created. Morning will bring renewed efforts, the continuation of this springtide ritual. The warren grows not according to rigid plans, but through responsive collaboration with the earth itself. We build with the soil, not against it, following its natural contours, respecting its inherent structure, listening to what it tells our sensitive pores about where passages should flow and chambers should bloom. The newly expanded burrow will hold our lives through coming seasons. The quick pulse excitement of mating time, the hushed miracle of births, the vigilant days of raising young, the slow descent into autumn's preparation, and eventually winter's contemplative rest. Then spring will call again with its irresistible voice, and new tunnels will branch from these we create today, extending our shared story another season further into the welcoming earth. As sleep finally overtakes our weary bodies, the last conscious sensation is the perfect fit of our forms against the freshly sculpted earth, a reciprocal embrace between the shapers and the shaped, between creatures and home. The soil's aroma wraps around us like a familiar blanket, and we surrender to dreams of tomorrow's digging, of new chambers waiting to be discovered within the nurturing ground. Meadow symphony at high summer. The longest days have settled upon the land, stretching golden light deep into what was once night's territory. High summer has arrived, its generous warmth transforming our meadow into a realm of abundance that would seem impossible during winter's spare months. The grasses have reached their full height now, creating a forest at our scale. Each blade a potential watchtower, each clump a fortress of safety. From the burrow's entrance, the meadow appears as an ocean of gentle movement, swaying in rhythms dictated by breezes we cannot see but can feel across our sensitive whiskers. Daylight hours we spend largely in the cool embrace of our burrow, conserving energy while the sun stands high and hawks circle on thermal currents. But as twilight approaches, as the harsh brightness softens into something more forgiving to our sensitive eyes, we emerge into a transformed world. The first to venture out tests the air with caution, nose twitching rapidly, gathering complex information from molecules adrift in the evening breeze. All seems well. The signal is given. 2 soft thumps against packed earth, felt through pores rather than heard. We emerge in staggered sequence, never all at once, maintaining the caution that has preserved our bloodlines through countless generations. The meadow receives us differently in this season, its density providing immediate concealment, its abundance offering nourishment in almost every direction. The evening air carries a symphony of scents: clover's honeyed sweetness, the sharp green of new grass, wildflowers offering their complex perfumes, and beneath it all, the foundational earthiness of soil, warmed through a long day of sun absorption. The first hours after sunset belong to careful grazing near the warren entrances. We move with deliberate slowness, each mouthful of vegetation chewed thoroughly, ears rotating like paired satellites gathering audio information from all directions. There is contentment in this simple communion with the meadow's offerings, this direct translation of sunlight into nourishment through the medium of tender plants. Our digestive systems, evolved for this precise purpose, work their quiet alchemy, extracting maximum benefit from each stem and leaf. As true darkness descends, the meadow undergoes its most magical transformation. The first cricket begins its night song, a solitary musician, soon joined by countless others. Their chirping builds gradually, tentative individual notes merging into a continuous chorus that will provide the soundtrack for the night's activities. To human ears, perhaps this sound registers as a simple, repetitive backdrop. To us, it contains layers of information: temperature readings, population densities, subtle warnings of approaching weather changes, even the general health of the meadow itself, all encoded in variations of pitch and rhythm too fine for most to discern. The cricket chorus establishes itself fully as darkness deepens, but it forms merely the foundational layer of night's complex orchestration. Listen closely now. There's the intermittent rustle of field mice navigating through grass tunnels, the distant hoot of an owl, noted but not feared, as it hunts far beyond our current grazing area. The gentle percussion of seed pods, occasionally splitting open in the cooling air. Each sound occupies its own frequency in the night's acoustic spectrum, creating a layered composition that tells the story of this specific summer night, in this specific meadow, in this specific year. Above this symphony, visual magic unfolds. The first firefly rises from the grass, its cold light pulsing with biological purpose. Another follows, then another, until dozens float through the meadow like slow-motion sparks, each carrying a tiny portion of captured starlight. Their patterns seem random at first glance, but contain their own language, each species with distinctive flash patterns, each individual with subtle variations that identify it to potential mates. We observe this display with a calm appreciation that transcends mere survival awareness. There is something in this living light show that speaks to ancient memory, to the part of us that recognizes beauty beyond its practical purpose. We move deeper into the meadow now, confidence growing with darkness. Our movements take on a different quality in these peak summer nights, a slow-motion grazing, unlike our cautious, quick-burst feeding of other seasons. Steps become more measured, more deliberate. We settle into particular patches of vegetation for longer periods, allowing ourselves the luxury of extended feasting where tender shoots cluster most densely. Our bodies, evolved for quick escape, temporarily surrender to stillness, though vigilance never fully abandons us. The night meadow operates on different rules than its daytime counterpart. Predators still exist, but their methods change. The hawks and foxes that rely primarily on sight give way to hunters who navigate by sound and scent. Our defenses adapt accordingly. We move with increased silence, placing each paw with precision that barely bends the grass stems beneath. Our breathing slows, becomes shallower, less detectable. When we pause to listen, our stillness is so complete that even nearby creatures might fail to distinguish our forms from the surrounding vegetation. It's during one such moment of absolute stillness that the most extraordinary synchronization occurs. Standing motionless between heartbeats, ears fully extended to capture the meadow's nocturnal murmurings, we sometimes experience the profound sensation of our own biological rhythms, aligning with the ambient hum of the ecosystem. Our heartbeat, typically a rapid flutter, gradually slows to match some greater pulse that seems to emanate from the earth itself. Our breathing finds the meadow's rhythm. For precious moments, the boundary between individual and environment dissolves. We are not merely in the meadow, we are of it, inseparable from its complex web of interactions. This sensation triggers contemplation unusual for creatures, often assumed to live entirely in the present moment. Under star-scattered skies, surrounded by the breathing darkness of high summer, philosophical questions arise unbidden. What is our place within this vast, intricate system? We are small players in the meadow's drama, neither keystone species nor inconsequential participants. Predators depend upon our existence. Plants are dispersed through our movements. Soil is aerated by our burrows. We are simultaneously hunters and hunted, creators and destroyers, shapers and shaped. There is profound comfort in this realization of our smallness within the greater whole. The pressure of individual survival, that constant companion of all wild creatures, temporarily recedes when viewed against the backdrop of ecological interconnection. The meadow existed before us and will continue long after our brief lives conclude. Yet while we are here, we participate fully in its ongoing story, contributing our chapter to an endless narrative written in pollen and blood, growth and decay, birth and consumption. Midnight approaches, marked by subtle shifts in temperature and dew formation, rather than any human measurement. The meadow reaches peak activity in these deepest night hours. Above us, bats perform aerial acrobatics, their high-frequency communications inaudible to our ears, but felt somehow as a pressure against our most sensitive whiskers. Nighthawks dive through insect clouds. Occasionally, the heavy wing beats of an owl pass overhead, registered, respected, but not feared unless they circle back with more purposeful intent. We move toward the meadow's western edge, where a particular patch of clover has reached perfect ripeness. Several of us converge there, not through planning but through shared attraction to optimal nutrition. We maintain respectful distances, close enough for communal security, far enough for comfortable feeding. No hierarchy dictates access to this bounty. There is enough for all in summer's generosity. We graze in companionable silence, occasionally acknowledging each other's presence with the slightest ear movements or whisker vibrations. The stars wheel slowly overhead, their light diminished somewhat by summer's atmospheric haze, but still providing navigation markers as reliable as any human compass. Ancient constellations, unrecognized by human naming conventions, but nevertheless familiar to our kind through generations of night grazing, help maintain our orientation. In relation to the home warren, we rarely stray beyond easy return distance, particularly during the breeding season when responsibilities to young ones require more frequent burrow returns. A sudden sound interrupts the night's peaceful progression, the distinctive crack of a breaking twig at the meadow's northern boundary. All movement ceases instantly. Ears rotate toward the disturbance. Noses test the air currents. Information is gathered, processed, shared through subtle signals. A deer, we collectively determine, large but harmless, more likely to warn us of approaching predators than to represent danger itself. Grazing resumes, though with slightly heightened awareness directed toward that section of meadow edge. As the night deepens past its midpoint, we begin the subtle shift from feeding to contemplation. Bellies full of summer's richness, we find protected spots beneath grass overhangs or beside sturdy wildflower stalks. Here we engage in meticulous grooming, cleaning soil from sensitive pores, removing seed hitchhikers from fur, maintaining the body that carries us through this complex world. The grooming serves practical purpose: scent reduction, parasite removal, fur alignment for optimal insulation, but also provides a meditative period of self-care, rarely possible during days exposed vulnerability. The deepest hours of night bring a particular quality of silence different from any other time. The cricket chorus continues but seems to recede into background awareness. The meadow holds its breath between activities. In this suspended moment, we sometimes catch glimpses of the moon through grass blade windows, its light transforming ordinary vegetation into silver architecture. Shadows take on substance and meaning. Familiar terrain becomes momentarily otherworldly. It's during this quietest period that the night's philosophical thread returns with greater intensity. Our smallness within the vast ecosystem no longer feels merely comforting. It becomes actively reassuring, even exhilarating. To be a minor note in the meadow's symphony means to be perfectly adapted to our ecological niche, to participate in patterns established long before our individual existence. The pressure to be more than what we are, a pressure perhaps unique to human consciousness, has never disrupted our integration with the natural world. The meadow continues its nocturnal functions around us. Worms rise closer to the surface, aerating soil in their ceaseless labor. Seeds released during daytime heat now find purchase in cooling soil. Fungi spread invisible networks beneath our pores, communicating through chemical languages we sense but cannot comprehend. Dew begins forming on grass tips, each droplet a potential morning drinking fountain. The entire ecosystem pulses with purpose, with interconnection, with a collective intelligence that transcends its individual components. The eastern horizon shows the first imperceptible lightening, not yet dawn, but the promise of its eventual arrival. This subtle shift registers in our sensitive vision. Night feeding will soon conclude. We make final rounds through the richest vegetation patches, gathering sustenance to carry us through daylight hours, largely spent in burrow safety. The fireflies have dimmed, their light shows concluded until tomorrow's dusk. The cricket chorus continues but with changing tempo, responding to the first temperature shifts that precede visible dawn. We begin our gradual return toward the warren, not in direct lines, but in casual, grazing meanders that eventually bring us closer to home ground. There is no rush in these pre-dawn moments. Nocturnal predators have largely concluded their hunting. Diurnal threats have not yet awakened. This boundary time offers particular safety, a transitional period we utilize with full awareness of its brief opportunity. Reaching the shorter grass surrounding our warren entrances, we pause for collective assessment. Ears swivel in coordinated surveillance, noses sample air from all directions. Eyes, adjusted fully to night vision, scan for anomalies in the familiar landscape. All seems well. One by one, we return to the earth's embrace, carrying within our bodies the meadow's nutrients, and within our consciousness the night's expansive experiences. Below ground, the warren welcomes us with familiar scents and surfaces. The day's heat has not yet penetrated these depths. Cool earth surrounds us with protective embrace. We settle into sleeping chambers with full bellies and minds, somehow both quieted and expanded by night's contemplative hours. Sleep comes easily after such rich sensory engagement. As consciousness fades, the meadow's symphony continues in our awareness. Crickets and distant owl calls, rustling grasses and the silent movement of stars across sky we no longer see but somehow still sense. We carry the night meadow within us, into dreams, our place in its intricate pattern both humble and essential. Tomorrow night will bring another movement in this endless composition, another opportunity to synchronize our heartbeats with the breathing world above our burrow home. Perils of the plow. The first warning comes not as sound but as vibration, a rhythmic trembling that travels through the earth's dense body and into our resting forms. Still half wrapped in sleep's embrace, our bodies respond before conscious thought assembles meaning. Whiskers twitch, ears swivel toward the warren's upper chambers. Heartbeats accelerate from rest to readiness in mere moments. The vibration strengthens, taking on a mechanical regularity that separates it immediately from natural occurrences like distant thunder or falling trees. We know this sensation with ancestral memory more profound than individual experience. The knowledge lives in our bones and blood, passed through generations who have survived this particular danger. The tractor has awakened. The plow approaches. The warren stirs to collective alertness. Sleep abandoned without hesitation. In the deeper chambers, those who rest farthest from the surface entrances sense the disturbance more faintly. But the message travels quickly through our underground community. The vibrations evolve from general trembling to distinct pulses, the heavy rotation of wheels upon earth, the engine's bass rumble that penetrates soil with surprising clarity. Those nearest the main entrance make the first assessment: direction, distance, probable path. Most ominous is the particular harmonic quality of this vibration. We have learned to distinguish between the various human machines that traverse our territory. The light bounce of the riding mower presents minimal threat, passing quickly over established grass without disturbing the ground beneath. The heavy compression of the harvest combine warrants caution, but typically arrives only after summer's end. But this rhythmic shudder with metallic undertones, this carries the signature of soil being actively torn and overturned. The plow has returned to the field adjacent to our meadow home. The eldest male, his fur graying around the muzzle from many seasons of survival, moves purposefully toward the emergency exit tunnel facing away from the approaching threat. His assessment requires no vocalization. 3 firm thumps from his powerful hind legs communicate with perfect clarity to every warren resident. Immediate evacuation required. We move with practiced efficiency, not in panicked flight but in coordinated response honed through regular drills during calmer times. The youngest and most vulnerable are guided toward exit points farthest from the disturbance. Nursing mothers gather their little ones with gentle mouth carries, transporting them in careful bounds towards safety. The strongest adults position themselves near the main entrances, prepared to thump specific warning codes should the danger pattern suddenly change. The vibrations intensify. Through the thin ceiling of our shallowest tunnels, the tractor's mechanical heartbeat becomes almost deafening, a rhythmic assault that sends small soil particles cascading from packed earth walls. These surface routes, created for quick access to grazing grounds, suddenly become potential death traps. Their minimal overhead coverage, perfectly adequate for protection from weather and aerial predators, provides insufficient buffer against the coming steel intrusion. Those who have evacuated to the meadow's safety send communication back through ground vibration, a series of lighter, rapid thumps that translate roughly to "clear path ahead." This terrestrial telegraph system, conducted through the very soil that sustains us, allows information to flow between separated warren members without exposing additional bodies to potential danger. The first direct visual confirmation comes from a lookout positioned behind the protective base of an old hawthorn. The tractor appears over the eastern rise, sunlight gleaming from its metal surfaces with painful brightness. The human operator sits elevated in the cabin, separated from the earth by layers of machinery and perception. From that height, the subtle contours that define our world, the almost imperceptible rise that marks a warren entrance, the slight depression of a favored dust bath, become invisible, irrelevant to the geometric precision of plowed furrows. Behind the tractor, the plow itself drags like an earth-devouring predator. Its curved metal teeth bite into soil that took years to develop its complex living structure. With mechanical indifference, it transforms the layered, intricate ecosystem of the field into uniform rows of exposed earth. Worm tunnels, seed caches, hibernation chambers of countless small creatures, all destroyed in the relentless path of human agriculture. Our warren, thankfully, lies just beyond the field's official boundary, within the meadow that serves as transitional buffer between cultivated land and forest edge. But danger remains present. Humans frequently misjudge or deliberately extend their mechanical reach. The shallow bolt holes, those emergency shelters dug specifically for quick refuge when caught grazing too far from the main warren, dot the contested border area. Many will be destroyed today. The tractor's path brings it parallel to our meadow edge. The ground shaking reaches maximum intensity. We who remain in the warren's deeper chambers press ourselves against the walls farthest from the disturbance, ears flattened against our bodies to dampen the overwhelming vibration. Communication becomes impossible through any means other than direct physical contact, a nose touch, a body press. The smaller kits whimper softly, their instinctive silence response temporarily overwhelmed by the mechanical intrusion. Above, the plow's metallic teeth catch sunlight as they rise and fall in their destructive rhythm. They tear through a bolt hole entrance as easily as through any other soil formation, leaving no trace of the carefully engineered sanctuary. Small tunnels that took days of diligent digging vanish in seconds beneath the machine's indifferent progress. A season's worth of emergency planning is undone in a single morning's human labor. The tractor pauses at the field's far boundary. The engine's pitch changes as the operator executes a wide turn, preparing for the return pass that will bring the machine even closer to our primary territory. This brief respite allows for quick communication among those still monitoring from safe observation points. Ground thumps translate to specific intelligence. Second approach beginning. Machine turning toward northwest corner. Remain in deep positions. The second pass begins with renewed mechanical determination. The tractor advances along a path mere body lengths from our meadow's technical edge. Here, the demarcation between human territory and wild space exists more firmly in human understanding than in actual landscape features. Grasses blend gradually from cultivated field to natural meadow. The borderland has always been a zone of negotiated use, humans claiming ownership through occasional maintenance, wild creatures establishing presence through consistent habitation. This contested boundary now faces direct arbitration by plowblade. The operator, perhaps noticing encroaching meadow vegetation, steers slightly beyond the previous year's furrow line. The metal teeth bite into soil that has remained undisturbed for several seasons. 3 bolt holes vanish in quick succession, their entrances scraped away and their shallow tunnels exposed to harsh sunlight. A small food cache, laboriously stocked with early seeds and preserved roots, spills across newly turned earth. Those watching from safe distance register each loss with involuntary ear twitches, not merely calculating survival impact, but feeling the dissolution of collective work. Each destroyed sanctuary represents countless hours of careful excavation, of soil assessment and structural reinforcement. The pragmatic necessity of shifting territories mingles with something more profound, a sense of violation that transcends mere survival consideration. The tractor completes its second pass and begins a third. Its path establishes the new reality we must accept. Approximately 1/8 of our territory, primarily along the eastern boundary, has been absorbed into the cultivated field. The adjustment will require significant adaptation. New bolt holes must be established, grazing patterns altered, predator approach vectors recalculated based on changed sightlines and reduced cover. As the mechanical vibrations finally begin to recede, moving toward the field's southern section, the immediate emergency response transitions to damage assessment. Those who evacuated to the meadow's safety gradually returned to the warren's main entrances, underground. We who sheltered in deep chambers cautiously moved toward upper tunnels, testing for structural damage caused by prolonged vibration. The warren has survived largely intact. Two secondary entrances show partial collapse, with soil from ceiling and walls partially blocking exit paths. A tertiary tunnel network, extending toward the now destroyed eastern bolt holes, ends abruptly in exposed earth where the plow cut through. But the primary chambers, the nursery, sleeping quarters, and central meeting space remain secure. Their deeper positioning and more substantial overhead coverage having provided adequate protection. Outside, the immediate landscape has transformed dramatically. Where mixed vegetation once created a gradual transition from meadow to field, a sharp delineation now exists. Exposed soil stops abruptly at a ragged edge of partially trampled grass. The newly plowed ground releases powerful scents, broken root systems, exposed minerals, disturbed insect colonies. The olfactory assault contains both threat signals and opportunity markers. Danger in the immediate destruction, potential in the nutrients now brought to surface. We gather in the central chamber for collective assessment, our bodies pressed close in unconscious reassurance after the separation of emergency response. No lives were lost today, a testament to our evacuation procedures and the warren's strategic positioning just beyond primary agricultural territory. But the territorial loss requires immediate adaptive response. The eldest female, her experience spanning 7 full growing seasons, initiates planning with a series of deliberate movements, indicating with paw gestures where new bolt holes must be established farther from the adjusted boundary. Through the remainder of the day, we maintain heightened vigilance. The tractor continues its methodical transformation of the field, but its destructive path no longer directly threatens our core territory. The vibrations gradually diminish as the machine works farther from our warren. By late afternoon, the mechanical sounds cease entirely. A different human arrival follows, the walking human who inspects the plowed terrain, occasionally bending to crumble soil between fingers or measure furrow depth with small instruments. As evening approaches, we cautiously emerge to assess our altered environment from surface perspective. The newly established field edge creates both challenge and opportunity. The sharp delineation between plowed soil and meadow grass eliminates the gradual cover transition we previously utilized for protected movement. Future approaches to the field will require more exposed crossing, a calculated risk during harvest season when fallen grain provides essential nutrition. Conversely, the clearly defined boundary may discourage further human encroachment for at least this growing cycle. The destroyed bolt holes represent the most significant security loss. These satellite refuges, strategically positioned to provide emergency shelter when grazing far from the main warren, formed a critical component of our territorial safety network. Their reconstruction in safer locations becomes the immediate priority. 3 teams form organically, each focusing on a different direction from the main warren, seeking optimal positions for new emergency shelters. We work through twilight, using the transition between day and night to maximize both safety and productivity. The soil in undisturbed meadow sections proves more challenging for excavation, dense with established root systems and compacted by seasons of growth. But this same quality will provide stronger structural integrity for the new bolt holes, perhaps allowing slightly larger emergency chambers than the destroyed predecessors. As darkness settles completely, we gather once more in the central warren chamber. The day's losses have been catalogued, adaptation plans initiated. The plow has claimed territory, destroyed auxiliary structures, and altered our relationship with a significant portion of our range. Yet the core of our existence, the main warren, the primary meadow grazing grounds, the secure access routes to water sources, remains intact. In this moment of collective assessment, something shifts in our understanding. The plough, while representing acute danger during its active operation, has created a boundary that may actually enhance certain aspects of security. The newly exposed field will temporarily reduce predator concealment opportunities along our eastern flank. The clear delineation between wild and cultivated land may discourage human recreational incursion into our core territory. The freshly turned soil will eventually produce grain crops that, in their mature stage, offer nutritional opportunities worth the calculated risk of field ventures. We have lost and gained in the same event. Territory surrendered in exchange for boundary clarification, established bolt holes sacrificed to inform creation of potentially superior replacements. The cycle of disturbance and adaptation, as old as our species' relationship with humans, continues its complex choreography. We are diminished and strengthened simultaneously, our survival dependent not on prevention of change, but on responsive navigation of its inevitable occurrence. Night deepens around the warren. Tomorrow will bring the practical work of reconstruction, new bolt holes completed, adjusted territorial markers established through scent deposition, modified grazing patterns communicated through demonstration to younger members. But for now, we rest in the security of our core chambers, bodies touching in communal reassurance, breath sinking unconsciously as sleep gradually overcomes hypervigilance. The plough has passed, we remain. Twilight of the eldest hare. The first signs are subtle, almost imperceptible to those who haven't shared seasons with her. The eldest hare moves with a certain deliberateness now, each step placed with careful consideration where once she bounded with fluid grace. Her movements remain precise, purposeful, but contain a new quality of conservation, energy distributed with the wisdom of one who knows its finite nature. We notice this change collectively, though none would draw attention to it directly. Respect manifests in pretending not to see the slight tremor in her hind leg when she settles into her favored resting hollow, or the extra moments required to groom her increasingly coarse fur. She has witnessed 13 full cycles of the seasons, an extraordinary longevity that has transformed her into something beyond mere elder. She has become the warren's living memory, her experiences spanning droughts and floods, harsh winters and abundant springs, predator cycles, and human expansions. The knowledge accumulated through these seasons resides not just in conscious recollection but in the very way she moves through the world, each action informed by countless previous iterations, refined to perfect efficiency. This morning, she emerges later than usual from her private sleeping chamber, a small alcove off the main warren that younger members maintain for her with special attention to comfort. The soft bedding of collected fur and dried grass fragments receives regular refreshment without request or acknowledgement. It simply happens, part of the warren's unspoken honoring of her status. As she makes her slow progress toward the central chamber, several younger hares adjust their positions to create a clear path without obvious intention. Deference occurs naturally, without hierarchical demand. The morning sunlight, filtering through the main entrance, catches the silver grey that now dominates her once russet coat. Age has bleached colour along with vitality, yet granted a luminous quality that distinguishes her from all others. Even in dimmed warren light, she seems to hold radiance differently, reflecting it rather than absorbing, giving back light rather than consuming it. Her eyes, though slightly clouded now, retain remarkable alertness. Nothing escapes her notice, particularly changes in established patterns. Today's communal grooming session takes on special significance, though none would name it such. 3 middle-aged females settle near the eldest, beginning their own personal grooming with methodical attention. Gradually, almost accidentally, their grooming extends to include her, a casual sweep across her shoulders, a careful cleaning behind her ears, where her own flexibility no longer permits thorough attention. No acknowledgement passes between them. The assistance offered requires no recognition. The acceptance needs no gratitude. Both giving and receiving occur within the seamless fabric of Warren life. The eldest contributes her wisdom in ways that require no vocalization or deliberate instruction. When two younger males engage in boundary-establishing behavior near a recently excavated tunnel, her mere presence, settling quietly nearby with attentive ears, modulates their interaction from potential conflict to productive negotiation. She makes no intervention, offers no correction. Her witnessed experience alone shapes behavior around her, like a substantial stone in a stream determining water's flow by simply existing in its path. Midday brings the Warrens' quietest hours, when most retreat to cool earth depths while the sun stands high. The eldest, however, makes her careful way toward the entrance, pausing at the threshold where temperature shifts from underground constant to surface variability. She sits in this liminal space, neither fully within nor without, her nose working continuously to extract information from air currents that travel between worlds. Her whiskers, now white where once they showed youthful black, register subtle pressure changes that speak of weather patterns beyond the immediate moment. A young female, in her first season of maturity, observes this meditation from respectful distance. Eventually, curiosity overcomes deference. She approaches with appropriate caution, settling an undemanding body length away. No words pass between them. Our communication has never required them, but permission is somehow granted through the eldest's slight ear adjustment. The younger moves closer, matching her elder's posture in unconscious mirroring. Together they sit, experiencing the threshold's unique perspective, the interplay of worlds, the conversation between below and above, the transitional magic of spaces that belong fully to neither realm. What passes between them transcends knowledge transmission in its conventional understanding. The younger absorbs not just information but approach, how to position oneself in relation to complexity, how to gather multisensory input without predetermined filtering, how to hold contradictory information simultaneously rather than rushing toward resolution. She will carry this lesson without knowing she learned it, incorporating it into her own developing way of being. This is how wisdom travels through generations, not as packaged instruction, but as absorbed presence. Afternoon brings subtle shift to the Warrens' energy. Several members prepare for early evening grazing, moving toward entrances with the restless anticipation of appetite meeting opportunity. The eldest shows no sign of joining this emergence. Her morning expedition to the threshold appears to have satisfied her engagement with the above-ground world for this day. She retreats instead to a secondary chamber, not her sleeping alcove, but a communal space less frequently used during active hours. The younger members adjust their movements accordingly, their paths taking them elsewhere without conscious rerouting. In this quieter space, two of the season's newest kits discover her resting form. Their initial energy, the perpetual bounce that characterizes our youngest, diminishes not through external correction, but through some instinctive recognition. Their approach becomes measured, almost ceremonial. The eldest acknowledges them with the slightest ear movement, permission and welcome combined in minimal gesture. They settle beside her with uncharacteristic stillness, their small bodies finding perfect alignment against her larger form. What follows appears, to casual observation, as simple shared rest, but something more profound transpires in this quiet communion. The kits absorb her regulated breathing, her economy of movement, her quality of attention that remains alert, even in apparent stillness. Their own typically erratic patterns gradually synchronize with hers. For precious moments, 3 heartbeats from vastly different life stages find common rhythm. The eldest neither instructs nor entertains. She simply continues her way of being, allowing its proximity to shape their developing understanding of what it means to exist as our kind. Evening approaches with lengthening shadows. The warren stirs with renewed activity as cooler air signals prime grazing time. The eldest has returned to her private alcove, her appearance at communal gathering notably absent. This deviation from established pattern registers collectively, though no obvious response manifests. Food portions, choice tender shoots and leaves gathered by returning grazers, appear near her chamber without ceremony. They remain untouched. As darkness settles fully across the meadow, a subtle shift occurs in the warren's atmosphere. The usual evening activities, grooming circles, territory reaffirmations, nursery tending, proceed with slightly subdued energy. Communication continues primarily through established channels of body language and scent marking, yet an additional layer of awareness spreads through our collective consciousness. Something approaches, not danger requiring response, but transformation requiring recognition. The eldest emerges unexpectedly from her chamber near midnight. Her movement through the central warren creates momentary stillness wherever she passes. She navigates with remarkable steadiness toward the main entrance, her path direct and purposeful, in ways that contradict the day's earlier careful conservation. Those awake during this midnight hour observe without intervention, creating space for her unimpeded passage. She pauses at the threshold, silhouetted against the entrance's star-scattered darkness. Her profile shows the proud ears still held high, despite the body's increasing curvature beneath them. For several breaths, she remains motionless, gathering information, making assessment, perhaps collecting memory. Then, with decision that carries no hesitation, she moves beyond the entrance into the night meadow. 3 of the warren's mature adults, awakened by some unspoken awareness, converge near the entrance. They maintain respectful distance, neither following nor impeding. Their presence acknowledges something significant, transpiring without attempting to influence its unfolding. They settle into watchful waiting, their bodies forming unconscious triangle pattern, with the entrance at its center. The eldest moves through night-transformed terrain with surprising sureness. Her path takes her not toward prime grazing areas but toward the meadow's western edge, where evening sun made its daily departure hours earlier. The grasses part before her with whispering acknowledgement. Occasional moonlight, filtering through shifting cloud cover, catches her silvered coat with momentary illumination before returning her to darkness. She reaches a small rise, unremarkable in daylight assessment, but transformed by darkness and purpose into place of significance. From this modest elevation, both warren and wider territory spread in nocturnal panorama. The burrow entrances, invisible to most predator perception, appear to her experienced vision as subtle interruptions in the meadow's continuity. The grazing paths, worn by countless paws through countless seasons, trace connection lines between safety points. The territory's entirety, from stream-edge watering ground to forest border bolt holes, presents itself in comprehensive display. The night air carries complex information to her sensitive system. Each inhalation brings molecular memories, the distinctive scent signatures of seasons past, layered beneath the immediate present. Here the lingering marker of last spring's unusual flower abundance. There the mineral traces of the drought 3 cycles ago. Everywhere, the biological signatures of living things, continuing their ancient patterns, regardless of individual participation. She settles into seated position, her form becoming almost indistinguishable from the surrounding vegetation. Only her ears maintain continuous movement, rotating with dedicated attention to gather the night's acoustic offerings. The distant owl calls from forest edge. Closer, field mice rustle through underground pathways. From the warren behind, the faint sounds of settled community, the collective breathing of those who share her bloodline and those who share only her species being. The clouds that had partially obscured night sky gradually disperse, revealing star patterns recognized through generations before written human records. The eldest's gaze lifts toward this ancient navigation system. Her perception, increasingly freed from immediate survival processing, expands to encompass perspective unavailable in younger urgency, individual existence contextualized within seasonal cycles. Seasonal cycles contained within celestial patterns, all participating in continuous transformation that requires neither resistance nor surrender, only appropriate response to its inevitable unfolding. Dawn approaches with characteristic gradual illumination. The three who maintained vigil near the Warren entrance have been joined by others awakened through the night hours. None have approached the western rise. None have interrupted the solitary communion occurring at Meadow's edge, but all register awareness of process unfolding beyond individual control or intervention. The horizon begins its transformation from black to indigo to the first suggestion of warming gold. The eldest maintains her seated vigilance, her attention now directed fully toward this emerging light. Her ears, those remarkable instruments of perception that have guided her through 13 years of complex survival, stand fully upright, receiving the day's first birds with perfect receptivity. Her whiskers register the subtle shift in air pressure that precedes full dawn, the molecular change as night dew begins its transformation back to atmospheric contribution. As sunlight breaches the horizon with definitive declaration of new day, something releases in her maintained posture. The vigilant alertness softens into different quality, not diminishment, but transition. Her breathing, visible in the dawn's cool air, establishes new rhythm. Slower, deeper, more precisely aligned with the meadow's own respiratory exchange. The morning light catches her silver-gray fur, transforming it momentarily to russet reminiscent of her younger seasons. From the Warren entrance, the waiting community witnesses this illumination with collective recognition. No signal passes between them, yet they disperse with coordinated purpose, returning to chambers, resuming morning activities, continuing the Warren's necessary functions. Their movement carries no quality of distress or disruption. The cycle continues its eternal rotation. Their participation adjusts accordingly. Three figures remain at the entrance. The same three who first acknowledged the night journey. As sunlight strengthens across the meadow, they finally leave the threshold, moving with deliberate progress toward the western rise. Their approach carries no urgency, no intervention intent. They come as witnesses, as acknowledgement, as continuation. They find her precisely where expected, seated in profile against the strengthening light. Her form appears simultaneously substantial and translucent in morning's particular illumination. Her ears remain upright, still receiving the world's acoustic offerings, but the processing of this information has transformed into something beyond individual utility. Her listening now serves different purpose, connecting rather than protecting, participating rather than surviving. The three settle nearby, their positions forming natural semicircle facing the same dawn horizon. No grooming is offered, no contact initiated. Their presence itself constitutes the necessary acknowledgement. Together they observe the sun's steady emergence, the gradual withdrawal of shadow from meadow contours, the progressive awakening of day creatures, replacing their nocturnal counterparts. The eldest's breathing slows beyond survival requirement. Her perception expands beyond individual boundary. The accumulated experiences of 13 seasons, every predator evasion, every successful foraging, every kit raised, every winter survived, transform from personal history to meadow contribution. Her awareness disperses into the ecosystem that has both sustained and been sustained by her existence. Her final exhalation carries no drama, no struggle. It merges with the meadow's morning breeze as naturally as falling leaves join soil composition. The three witnesses acknowledge this transition with brief ear dip, not sorrow but recognition. What was individual returns to collective. What was singular rejoins plurality. The cycle maintains its unbroken continuity. They remain through morning's full emergence, their presence honoring transition completed. When sun stands fully above horizon, they rise without communication and make their separate ways toward different meadow sections. One returns directly to the warren, carrying wordless notification through body posture and scent markers. Another follows the stream path, perhaps seeking private processing through water-guided contemplation. The third begins methodical grazing nearby, embodying the fundamental continuation that outlasts individual participation. The warren absorbs this transition, as it has absorbed countless others through countless generations. The eldest's private sleeping alcove will remain unoccupied for appropriate cycle, her scent gradually fading from its surfaces. Eventually, its space will be incorporated into warren expansion or repurposed for new function. Her physical absence creates opportunity within the continuous process of adaptation. Yet something of her persists beyond biological dissolution. The knowledge transmitted through direct modeling, the behavioral patterns established through consistent demonstration, the warren's relationship with surrounding territory, shaped through her accumulated wisdom. These continue through those who absorbed her living presence. The youngest kids, who experienced her regulated breathing, will unconsciously replicate its pattern during their own future vigilance. The middle adults, who witnessed her threshold meditation, will incorporate its teaching into their own environmental assessment. Even her final journey provides instruction in approaching transformation with dignified acceptance. The meadow receives her contribution as it receives all transitions, with neither sentimentality nor indifference, but with the profound neutrality of systems that incorporate endings as essentially as beginnings. The grasses that cushioned her final rest will use her physical nutrients to continue their growth. The insects that begin nature's reclamation process will themselves become food for birds that filled her final hearing. The cycle continues without interruption, without judgment, without loss of essential continuity. As evening approaches, the warren resumes normal rhythms. Grazing parties emerge on schedule. Grooming circles form in usual chambers. The nursery receives its regular attention. Tomorrow will bring new considerations, new adaptations, new manifestations of ancient patterns. The cycle continues its eternal rotation, carrying individual participants through their temporary roles in its magnificent, indifferent continuity. The sun descends toward the western horizon, the same horizon that received the eldest's final attention. As darkness approaches, its golden light transforms the meadow into luminous landscape. Every grass blade becomes momentary flame. Every dewdrop captures miniature sun. The entire territory glows with temporary transcendence before surrendering to night's necessary balance. The warren settles into darkness with collective exhalation. Tomorrow will emerge with its own requirements, its own opportunities, its own manifestations of continuing life. For now, rest encompasses the community with dreamless surrender. The meadow breathes around them, its complex systems maintaining operation through night hours. Stars emerge overhead, their ancient light traveling across inconceivable distance to touch briefly upon the small corner of existence that contains our story. Listen closely to the wind that moves across the meadow tonight. Perhaps it carries something beyond its usual voice, a quality of attention, an alertness to beauty, a way of receiving the world's offerings with perfect presence. Perhaps something of the eldest hare's 13 years of experienced wisdom now disperses through the territory she inhabited with such profound attention. Perhaps you, drifting towards sleep while these words continue their gentle flow, might absorb some fragment of this dispersed awareness. Rest now. The story continues without need of your conscious participation. The meadow breathes, the warren sleeps, the cycle maintains its eternal rotation. Tomorrow will arrive with necessary light. For now, surrender to darkness with the same acceptance the eldest demonstrated in her final transformation. Sleep comes as naturally as all transitions when we release resistance to their inevitable unfolding. The meadow's darkness deepens as night claims full dominion. Stars multiply across the vault of sky, their ancient light creating patterns recognized by countless generations before human naming systems imposed arbitrary order. The warren sleeps in communal rhythm, bodies pressed close in unconscious comfort. Yet within this collective rest, individual dreams unfold, private experiences contained within shared space. Perhaps some dreams tonight contain silvered fur catching sunlight, or wise eyes observing without judgment. Perhaps memory translates into nocturnal narrative, preserving what physical presence can no longer sustain. The place where the eldest completed her transition remains unmarked by any visible monument. No cairn of stones or arranged vegetation distinguishes this ground from surrounding meadow. Our kind builds no memorials, creates no designated remembrance sites. The territory itself becomes the memorial, every familiar path and grazing ground infused with accumulated presence of those who traversed them before. Memory resides not in specific locations, but in continued interaction with landscape, shaped by countless previous interactions. While the warren sleeps, subtle changes already begin in the absent one's former chambers. Air currents flow differently through spaces no longer interrupted by physical presence. Scent molecules gradually disperse, their concentration diminishing with each passing hour. The slight depression in bedding material, shaped by 13 years of consistent weight distribution, begins its slow expansion back toward uniform surface. Nothing remains static, even in seeming stillness. Transformation continues its relentless progression at every scale, from microscopic to cosmic. The first grey light of pre-dawn brings gradual awakening to the warren's chambers. Individual members stir with typical variation, the naturally early risers stretching in preparation for morning surveillance, the habitual late sleepers curling tighter against the intrusion of consciousness. The communal rhythm finds its usual pattern despite the absence of one who participated in its creation. This continuation itself forms part of the cycle's wisdom, the capacity to absorb alteration without fundamental disruption. Morning emergence proceeds with characteristic caution. Sentinel members approach entrances first, testing air currents for predator presence, assessing light quality for visibility conditions. Finding favorable circumstances, they signal the all clear through subtle ground vibrations felt throughout the warren's structure. The day's activities commence without ceremony or special acknowledgement of yesterday's transition. Yet something has shifted in the collective field, not diminishment, but recalibration, like musical instruments finding new harmony after one voice concludes its contribution. The youngest members, perhaps less constrained by established patterns, show the most visible adaptation. A kit who regularly sought the eldest's quiet presence now gravitates toward another mature female, whose sitting posture bears subtle resemblance to the departed one. No conscious selection drives this choice. No deliberate replacement sought. The attraction occurs at levels deeper than strategic consideration. The unconscious recognition of embodied wisdom, continuing its transmission through new vessel. Midday brings the appearance of unfamiliar hair at territory's eastern boundary. This newcomer, male, approximately 2 seasons in maturity, approaches with appropriate caution, his body language displaying proper deference to established territory. His arrival during this particular transition phase carries no coincidental quality. The territory's energetic field has altered with the eldest's departure. This alteration travels through subtle channels beyond visual or acoustic detection. Something in this shifted field has drawn him from neighboring range, responding to opening within the warren's composition. The boundary guards respond with typical protocol, neither immediate welcome nor aggressive rejection. The assessment period begins with scent exchange at respectful distance. Information passes between established residents, and potential newcomer, genetic diversity markers, health indicators, temperament suggestions embedded in molecular composition. The process will continue through several days of gradual proximity increase, careful observation, and collective evaluation. No single member holds decision authority. The acceptance emerges through communal consensus or fails to materialize through its absence. Afternoon grazing proceeds with routine distribution across prime vegetation areas. 3 middle-aged females, including one who witnessed the final transition, move toward the western rise, where the eldest completed her journey. Their approach carries no ceremonial quality, no deliberate commemoration intent. They graze with ordinary attention to surrounding conditions, maintaining proper vigilance while satisfying nutritional needs. Yet their presence in this particular location, on this particular day, carries meaning beyond coincidence. The continuation manifests through ordinary action in significant space. One of these 3 discovers something unexpected among the grass stems, a tuft of silvered fur caught on seed pod, preserved from yesterday's final rest. She pauses, nose twitching with recognition. After momentary contemplation, she incorporates this finding into her grooming routine, carefully cleaning the fur with methodical tongue strokes before adding it to her own coat. The physical remnant thus continues its journey, becoming part of new embodiment rather than surrendering immediately to meadow's decomposition process. Evening brings behavioral adaptation more visible than morning's subtle adjustments. The communal grooming circle, which typically formed around the eldest's preferred resting spot near the eastern chamber entrance, naturally reconstitutes in slightly different location. No discussion precedes this shift. No deliberate reorganization occurs. Individual members simply respond to altered energetic field, finding new equilibrium through collective intelligence rather than centralized direction. The circle's fundamental function, social bonding through mutual care, continues uninterrupted, while its specific manifestation evolves with changing circumstances. Night falls across the territory, with deepening purple shadows stretching from forest edge. The warren settles toward sleep, through familiar sequence. Youngsters first, their energy depleted from day's adventures. Nursing mothers next, their bodies demanding rest for milk production. Mature adults following, in accordance with individual preference patterns. The last to settle are the boundary sentinels, their responsibility extending into darkness hours, with heightened auditory vigilance compensating for diminished visual capacity. Dreams again move through the collective consciousness, with individual variation contained within shared experience field. The absent one appears in some nocturnal narratives, not as departure reminder but as wisdom carrier, her form often surrounded by particular quality of light, not present in waking observation. These dream encounters transmit no specific instructions, deliver no detailed messages. Rather, they provide continuing connection with aspect of community wisdom, temporarily housed in specific form but belonging to collective inheritance. Dawn breaks with spectacular color display, horizon painted in extraordinary hues of amber and rose that suggest significance beyond ordinary day beginning. 2 youngsters, emerging earlier than their usual pattern, witness this remarkable illumination with appropriate wonder. Their perception, less conditioned by repetitive experience than mature members, receives the beauty with exceptional presence. This capacity for fresh seeing, for encountering familiar world with renewed attention, represents another form of wisdom passing through generational transmission, not the accumulation of experience, but the preservation of receptivity despite experience. The newcomer's integration continues with increased proximity permission. Having passed initial assessment, he now approaches closer to established members, though still maintaining respectful distance from primary warren entrances. His contribution potential becomes more apparent through daytime observation. Strong digging capacity, evidenced by well-developed forelimbs, healthy coat suggesting proper self-care and parasite resistance, alert sensory response, indicating effective predator detection. The warren's composition evolves through this potential addition, adapting to absence through strategic incorporation rather than identical replacement. Midday rest finds unusual gathering in central chamber. 5 mature females forming loose circle in space, rarely populated during peak sunlight hours. Their positioning creates specific geometric pattern with particular acoustic properties. The chamber's natural resonance amplifies their breathing synchronization, creating subtle, harmonic effect that permeates surrounding tunnels. This spontaneous sound healing addresses no specific ailment, targets no particular recipient. It simply offers recalibration opportunity to any who encounter its influence. Another form of wisdom transmission, requiring no verbal articulation or conscious reception. The Western Rise, where final transition occurred, shows first visible transformation. New vegetation emerges with particular vibrancy in precisely the spot where the eldest completed her journey. Nutrients released through physical decomposition feed, accelerated growth cycle. Several plants not previously established in this specific location now take root, their seeds perhaps carried in fur or digestive tract, and gifted to soil through final contribution. The meadow's composition evolves through this micro-succession event, diversity increasing through departures offering. Late afternoon brings brief thunderstorms sweeping across territory with dramatic intensity. Warren members retreat to underground safety with practiced efficiency. The rainfall penetrates soil with transformative effect, releasing molecular compounds previously locked in dry stability. The eldest's remaining physical components, already substantially incorporated into meadow's digestive system, undergo accelerated integration through this catalytic moisture. Her material contribution completes its return journey, dissolving arbitrary boundary between individual and environment that exists more prominently in human conception than wild reality. Evening emerges with extraordinary clarity following storm's purification. The newcomer receives first invitation to participate in communal grazing, his position still peripheral, but now included within group boundary. This acceptance manifests through simple proximity permission rather than formal ceremony. He responds with appropriate behavior, maintaining slightly greater distance from prime feeding areas, yielding path access when established members approach, demonstrating constant territorial awareness through regular perimeter scanning. Integration proceeds through demonstrated compatibility rather than declarative status change. Night falls with lingering storm energy, occasional distant thunder punctuating cricket chorus with bass undertones. The warren settles towards sleep with heightened awareness of weather's continuing influence. Dreams tonight carry different quality, less individual narrative, more collective immersion in elemental experience. Water becomes primary character in these shared nocturnal journeys. Its transformative potential, its boundary dissolution, its capacity to connect separate entities through unified medium. The eldest appears rarely in these dreams, her wisdom now dispersed too thoroughly for concentrated representation. Dawn arrives with mist rising from saturated ground, physical manifestation of boundary dissolution between earth and sky. Early risers emerge to find landscape temporarily transformed by this liminal condition. Familiar landmarks appear altered, distances distorted, sounds muffled, yet somehow amplified. This perceptual shift offers valuable adaptation opportunity, practicing navigation through changed conditions, developing flexibility in territory recognition, strengthening non-visual orientation capabilities. Even weather's temporary transformations provide learning opportunity within the endless cycle of death and renewal that constitutes our continuing existence. The warren approaches this new day with established routine modified by subtle recalibration. The eldest's wisdom continues its influence through altered behavioral patterns, adjusted spatial relationships, evolved communication methods. Her physical absence creates space for new manifestations of ancient knowledge carried in blood and bone and breath. The cycle maintains its eternal rotation, individual participants flowing through temporary roles in its magnificent continuity, and you, drifting toward consciousness as these words reach their conclusion, perhaps carry some fragment of this wisdom into your waking world. The acceptance of transformation, the recognition of continuation through change, the profound peace of belonging to processes larger than individual existence.